What if the greatest threat after the Fourth Shinobi War wasn't another enemy, but grief itself? As people across the villages begin losing their emotions, Tsunade and Mei discover a terrifying truth. Every broken bond is leading back to Naruto's heart. To protect him, they form a secret alliance. But the enemy they face cannot be defeated with chakra, strength, or jutsu. Because this time, Naruto's greatest power is also the thing that darkness wants most. This is the story of the hearts that guarded the sun.
Naruto. The hearts that guard the sun. The war was over. That was what every banner said. That was what every village announced to its people. What every shinobi academy carved into new stone tablets. What every merchant whispered with relief when roads opened again, and trade caravans stopped traveling with funerary cloth hidden under the cargo. The Fourth Shinobi War had ended beneath a sky split by gods, monsters, and miracles. The dead had returned to dust. The moon had lost its terrible eye. The allied shinobi forces had stood together, not as enemies pretending to cooperate, but as people who had finally seen the same sunrise after the same nightmare. Peace, everyone called it. Naruto Uzumaki had laughed the first time he heard someone say it in a formal speech. Not because it was funny, because the word sounded too small. Peace was what people said when weapons were lowered. Naruto knew better than most that lowered weapons did not mean healed hearts. He had seen too many smiles that arrived a second late, too many hands that shook only after trembling, too many veterans who woke at midnight because a door slammed. Too many mothers who kept setting bowls for sons who would never return, but Naruto believed in peace anyway. He believed in it stubbornly, foolishly, brightly, the way only Naruto could believe in something, not because the world had proven itself kind, but because he had decided it could become kind if enough people refused to give up on it. That belief was why the 5-Cage Summit had gathered again. Not for war. Not for emergency mobilization, for rebuilding. At least, that was the official reason. The summit hall in the Land of Iron had been rebuilt since the last time the leaders of the shinobi world gathered there with old hatred sitting like blades between them. The new chamber was wider, warmer, less severe. Lanterns burned behind paper screens. The central table had been polished until it reflected the faces leaning over it. Banners from each nation hung along the walls, no longer separated by empty spaces, but arranged in a circle. A symbol, the samurai hosts had said. Naruto would have liked that. Tsunade Senju hated symbols when they came too neatly. She sat with her arms folded, golden hair tied back, brown eyes narrowed beneath the diamond mark on her forehead. Officially, she was attending as an advisor to the 6th Hokage. Kakashi Hatake sat at the Konoha seat, calm and relaxed as always, one visible eye curved in that lazy expression that made enemies underestimate him and allies wonder how much he was hiding. Tsunade knew exactly how much, too much. That was why she had come. Around the table, the leaders of the shinobi world wore peace like a new robe that did not quite fit yet. Gaara sat with the quiet stillness of a man who had learned young that silence could be armor. Darui leaned back in the rakeage seat, broad shoulders loose, expression bored in a way that fooled nobody. Kuretsuchi tapped 2 fingers against the table, impatience in every motion. Mei Terumi sat straight-backed, composed, red-brown hair falling over one shoulder, her green eyes soft enough for diplomacy and sharp enough for war. Tsunade noticed that Mei had not touched her tea. That was the first thing. The second was that Mei had brought only 2 escorts. Not the usual number for a Mizukage traveling outside the land of water. Not enough for a formal show of strength. Just 2, one older hunter nin with a scar across the bridge of his nose, and one young woman standing behind Mei's left shoulder, pale and silent, with eyes that seemed unfocused until Tsunade looked directly at her. Then the young woman flinched, not visibly, not in the body, something in her presence pulled back. Tsunade's gaze sharpened. Interesting. Reconstruction routes through the eastern coast are still unstable, Mei was saying, voice smooth. Kirigakure can protect shipping lanes once the new patrol agreements are approved, but we cannot continue escorting civilian vessels into contested waters without shared funding. Contested by who? Kuretsuchi asked. The war ended. Pirates did not sign the armistice, Mei replied pleasantly. Darui sighed. That sounds annoying. Most problems do when they are not throwing lightning at you, Mei said. Gaara's mouth almost moved into a smile. Kakashi turned a page in the document before him. Konoha agrees in principle. Fire country ports will contribute to the escort fund if the patrol routes remain transparent. And if they do not, Mei asked. Then I assume Tsunade-sama will yell at me until I fix it. Tsunade snorted. Don't tempt me. A few smiles moved around the table. Good. Let them smile. Let them talk about ships, grain, bridge repairs, border tolls, missing nin registries, academy exchange programs, and memorial stone agreements. Let them talk about the world as if it were a broken building that could be repaired with enough hands. Tsunade had come with a report in the sealed pouch beneath her sleeve. She had not shown it to Kakashi. That choice had tasted like rust. Kakashi trusted her. Naruto trusted her. Sakura would have trusted her too if Tsunade had told her what she had found in the hospital basements beneath Konoha. But trust was not the same thing as safety. And Tsunade Senju had learned long ago that love made fools of people who believed it was enough. She let the meeting continue. For 3 hours, the world rebuilt itself in ink. Then a samurai attendant entered, bowed, and announced the midday recess. Chairs shifted, papers closed, escorts moved. Kuretsuchi immediately complained about the food. Darui asked if there was anywhere to nap that would not create an international incident. Gaara moved toward Kakashi to discuss joint refugee settlements near the old borders. Mei rose. Tsunade watched her. Mei did not look back. She simply lifted her cup of untouched tea, carried it to the side table, and set it down beside the water basin. Not on the tray, beside it. The cup handle pointed east. Tsunade's expression did not change. Old habits stirred in the back of her mind. Codes from a dead era, summit signals, quiet invitations used when speaking openly could get people killed. East meant water, untouched tea meant urgency, a cup beside the tray meant no witnesses. Tsunade waited exactly 7 breaths, then she stood. Kakashi, she said. The Hokage turned. Yes. I'm going to stretch my legs before I start punching people over budget proposals. Of course, Kakashi said lightly. Please try not to damage the walls. The land of iron sends very polite invoices. Tsunade walked out without another word. The corridor beyond the summit chamber was cool and quiet. Snow fell outside the narrow windows, not hard enough to storm, just enough to soften the edges of the world. Samurai guards stood posted every 30 paces, faces hidden behind metal masks. Tsunade passed them without slowing. At the far end of the corridor, a storage room door stood slightly open. She entered. Mei was already inside. The room smelled of cedar, dust, and cold iron. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with rolled mats, spare screens, and sealed crates. One lantern burned low between them. Mei's 2 escorts were gone, so were Tsunade's. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Then Tsunade said, "If this is about patrol funding, I'm going to be disappointed." Mei's smile was almost convincing. If this were about funding, I would have invited Kakashi. He looks easier to bully. He is. I suspected. The smile faded. That was when Tsunade knew, not guessed. Knew. Whatever Mei had brought into this room, it was not politics. Mei reached into her sleeve and withdrew a folded document sealed in dark blue wax. The symbol stamped into it was not the Mizuki's crest. It was older. A hunter nin mark. Tsunade's hand tightened once. Mei noticed. 3 weeks ago, Mei said quietly, a fisherman in a southern village stopped recognizing his daughter. Tsunade said nothing. He had no head injury, no genjutsu traces, no poison, no chakra disruption. His memory was intact in every other way. He knew the daughter's name. He knew the day she was born. He knew she liked sweet rice and hated storms. But when she stood in front of him, he felt nothing. Tsunade's face hardened. Mei placed the document on a crate between them. 2 days later, he stopped speaking. By the end of the week, he stopped eating unless someone placed food in his mouth. His body remains alive. His chakra pathways remain stable. His mind is not broken, but something essential is gone. Tsunade did not touch the report yet. How many? Mei's eyes lowered. 17 confirmed in the land of water. 42 suspected. The room seemed to grow colder. Tsunade exhaled through her nose. Pattern, Mei's gaze lifted. Every victim had a strong, unresolved bond to someone lost in the war or before it. A spouse, a sibling, a child, a comrade. Tsunade looked at the sealed report. Then she reached into her own sleeve and drew out a packet bound in red cord. She placed it beside Mei's. The Mizukage went very still. Tsunade said, "Konoha has 23 confirmed, 31 suspected." For the first time since Tsunade had known her, Mei Terumi looked genuinely shaken. "Same symptoms?" Mei asked. "Same enough. The body lives?" "Yes, no poison, no genjutsu, none we can detect." Mei's lips pressed together. "Chakra damage?" Tsunade's answer came like a stone dropped into a well. "None." The word hung there. Between two cage-level women, both born into a world where chakra explained everything from broken bones to gods. No chakra damage meant no battlefield wound. No poison, no parasite, no ordinary disease. No curse seal. No known technique. It meant the thing stealing people from inside themselves was moving through a door shinobi did not know how to lock. Mei broke the seal on Tsunade's report. Tsunade broke Mei's. For several minutes, the room held only the soft scrape of paper and the faint hiss of the lantern. Tsunade read like a surgeon cutting toward a tumor. Names, ages, locations, symptoms, witness statements, medical examinations. A mother who forgot why she kept a scarf folded beneath her pillow. A former genin who sat before the memorial stone for 6 hours, then walked away unable to remember whom he had come to mourn. A Kiri swordsman who polished a broken blade every morning for 9 years, then one day stared at it as if it belonged to a stranger. A Konoha nurse who lost her fiancé in the war and later began humming the song they had shared, only to stop mid-note and ask why everyone was crying, all different, all the same. Tsunade's throat tightened despite herself. She forced it down. Mei turned a page. Her face changed. Not much. Mei was too controlled for that, but Tsunade saw the moment the Mizukage reached the map. "You plotted them," Mei said. "So did you." Mei unfolded the second sheet from Tsunade's report. A map of Fire Country and surrounding regions stretched across the crate. Small red marks dotted villages, roads, hospitals, former battle camps. Mei placed her own map beside it. Blue marks along the islands, coastlines, old purge sites, refugee settlements. At first, the marks looked scattered. Then Mei took a thin brush from her sleeve, dipped it in water from a small travel vial, and touched 3 points on her map. The ink shimmered. Lines appeared, faint, almost invisible, each mark connected to another, not by roads or borders, but by something stranger. The lines curved unnaturally, ignoring geography, crossing seas and mountains as if the land meant nothing. Tsunade stared. "What is that?" Mei's eyes did not leave the map. "The reason I asked to meet you." She touched one of the blue lines. It quivered under her fingertip. "This was recorded by one of my heart sensors." Tsunade frowned. "Heart sensors?" A small lineage from the eastern islands, almost extinct now. Their ability was useless in the old Kiri. Mei's voice thinned. A village that trained children to kill their classmates had little interest in shinobi who could feel bonds. Tsunade remained silent. Mei continued. "They do not sense chakra. They sense attachments, emotional connections. Threads, they call them." Tsunade's first instinct was disbelief. Her second was anger. Her third was memory. Nawaki's necklace cold in her hand. Dan's blood beneath her palms. Juria's name arriving in a report she had not wanted to read. Threads. She hated the word immediately because some part of her understood it. Mei seemed to know. "I did not believe it either," she said. "Not fully. Not until my sensor stood in a room with a hollowed victim and began crying because, in her words, every thread in him has been cut, but the ends are still bleeding." Tsunade closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, the Sannin was gone. Only the medic remained. What happens if you reconnect them? We tried. Family, friends, familiar places, songs, letters. Mei's voice lowered. Some reacted, a little, a finger twitch, a tear, then nothing. So the connection isn't destroyed. No, severed. Tsunade looked down at the maps. Red marks, blue marks, different nations. Same wound. Your lines connect victims to each other. At first, yes, then farther. Mei lifted Tsunade's brush and, with permission unasked but understood, touched 3 red marks on the Fire Country map. Nothing happened. Mei glanced toward the door. Yura. The young woman from the summit entered so quietly Tsunade almost did not hear her. Pale, thin, Kiri headband at her throat instead of her forehead. Her eyes were gray but not blind, just focused on something beyond ordinary sight. Tsunade's chakra stirred instinctively. Mei raised a hand. She is safe. No one is safe in a room with secrets, Tsunade said. The young woman lowered her head. That is true, Lady Tsunade. Her voice was soft, too soft for a hunter nin. Mei said, show her. Yura stepped closer to the maps. Her hands trembled before she pressed 2 fingers above her own heart and inhaled slowly. At first, nothing happened. Then the air changed. Tsunade felt no chakra. That disturbed her more than any killing intent would have. There was no flare, no pressure, no technique structure. Nothing her senses could catch. Yet the lantern flame bent toward the maps. The paper lifted at the edges as if a breeze had entered the sealed room. Yura touched 1 red mark. A line appeared. Not ink, light. Faint gold, thin as hair, stretched from the marked village on Tsunade's map toward the edge of the paper. Then another line. Then another. Yura's breathing grew strained. Mei watched her with concern, but did not stop her. The lines crossed borders, passed through mountains, moved through the land of fire, across neutral roads toward places not shown on the map. Tsunade felt her stomach sink. Get a larger map, she said. Mei already had one. She unfolded it across the floor. The elemental nations spread beneath them. Yura knelt. Her fingertips touched the paper. Gold threads blossomed, dozens, then hundreds, thin lines from Konoha, from Kiri, from refugee camps, from battlefield graves, from hospitals, from old villages with new memorials. Every thread stretched inward, not straight, not perfect. They curved like rivers, joining other streams, becoming thicker as they crossed the map. Tsunade followed them with her eyes. Land of fire, central roads, the valley paths, Konoha, no, not just Konoha, the Hawkage Monument, the rebuilt district, the training grounds, the apartment buildings near the old market. Then, as Yura gasped, the threads converged into a single point of light so bright Tsunade almost reached for her chakra to shield her eyes. Mei whispered. Where? Yura's face had gone white. Tsunade already knew. But knowing did not stop the blade from turning inside her chest. Yura's trembling finger hovered over the glowing point. Konoha, she whispered. The center is in Konoha. Tsunade's voice was flat. Who? The young censor swallowed. The threads do not show names. Tsunade leaned closer, and the golden light reflected in her eyes. Try. Tsunade, Mei began. Try, Tsunade repeated. Yura looked to her Mizukage. Mei hesitated, then nodded once. Yura pressed both hands to the map. The effect was immediate. The lantern blew out. Darkness swallowed the room, but the map remained glowing, lines of gold and pale blue twisting across the paper like living veins. Yura made a small sound of pain. Mei moved to catch her, but the young woman shook her head and held on. Tsunade felt something then, not chakra, not exactly. A pressure behind the ribs, a memory of small fingers gripping her necklace, a laugh in the rain, a white-haired fool grinning before walking away. Tsunade's hand curled so hard her nails bit her palm. The map pulsed. One by one, the threads drew tighter, every bond, every grief, every unspoken goodbye, every hand not held long enough, every promise carried past the grave, all of them bending toward one impossible heart. Yura screamed. The light snapped. Mei caught her before she hit the floor. The lantern relit on its own with a weak, trembling flame. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Yura opened her eyes. Tears ran down her face. She looked directly at Tsunade, and the fear in her expression made the great Sannin feel suddenly, terribly old. I heard him, Yura whispered. Tsunade could not breathe. Mei tightened her grip on the censor's shoulders. Who? Yura's lips shook. The sun. The word struck Tsunade harder than any enemy ever had. She saw a boy covered in dirt and loneliness, shouting that he would become Hokage because if he said it loudly enough, maybe someone would look at him. She saw that same boy standing before pain, refusing revenge when revenge would have been easier. She saw him after the war, smiling at people who cheered his name, still rubbing the back of his head like he could not quite believe the world had learned to love him. Naruto. Of course it was Naruto. Of course every broken road led to him. The boy had spent his life tying himself to everyone the world tried to abandon. Enemies, monsters, orphans, murderers, villages, nations, biju, dead men's dreams, living women's grief, he connected to people like breathing. And now something was following those connections back to his heart. Tsunade turned away from the map. Her face had gone very calm. That was usually when people became afraid of her. What does it want? She asked. Yura closed her eyes, trembling. I don't know. Mei helped her sit against a crate. Rest. I heard more, Yura whispered. Tsunade looked back. Yura's voice dropped. It is not hungry like a beast. It is not angry. It feels... She searched for the word and seemed ashamed when she found it. Merciful. Mei's expression changed. Tsunade's did not. Yura continued. It moves through grief, through bonds that were never healed. It touches the place where love hurts, and it offers silence. Silence, Tsunade repeated. The young censor nodded. No pain, no longing, no loss, no bond. Tsunade's stomach turned. There were many kinds of enemies in the shinobi world. Greedy men, cruel men, broken men, monsters wearing human skin, humans wearing monster masks. But mercy was the most dangerous enemy of all when it had no understanding of life. Mei stood slowly. In Kiri's oldest records, she said, there are references to something similar, not this scale. Never this scale. After the bloodline purges, some survivors spoke of people who did not die when their families were killed. They simply emptied. The old regime dismissed it as trauma. And now I think trauma was the doorway. Tsunade's eyes narrowed. You knew this might connect to Kiri before the summit. Mei did not deny it. There are names in our purge records that were erased from official history. Clans that should have been remembered. Children who vanished from documents because admitting they existed meant admitting what was done to them. Tsunade heard the guilt beneath the Mizuki's control. Not personal guilt, perhaps. Mei had not ordered those purges. She had fought to end the bloody mist, but leaders inherited more than buildings and borders. They inherited graves. You think this started in your village? Tsunade said. Mei's smile was gone. I think my village gave it language. Yura made a faint sound. Both women turned. The censor was staring at the map again. One thin line remained visible, not gold, pale blue. It stretched from the convergence point at Konoha across the sea, across islands, through the land of water, toward a cluster of old marks near the eastern coast. Mei's face went still. Tsunade followed the thread. What is there? Mei did not answer immediately. Tsunade looked at her. What is there, Mei? The Mizuki's voice was barely above a whisper. An old purge site. Tsunade waited. Mei's hand closed around the edge of the crate. A village that no longer has a name. The blue thread pulsed, once, twice. Then the air in the storage room filled with a sound like someone exhaling after years of holding their breath. Tsunade stepped in front of Yura on instinct. Mei's chakra rose, hot and acidic beneath her skin, but there was nothing to attack. No enemy appeared. No shadow moved, only the thread. It lifted from the map as if pulled by invisible fingers, thin and trembling, and hovered between them. Then it spoke, not in a voice, not with words carried through air. It spoke inside the chest where grief lived. A name, soft, childlike. Familiar to one woman in the room, Setsuna. Mei's face drained of color. Tsunade saw it and understood immediately. The name meant something not from a report, not from rumor, from guilt. Mei, Tsunade said carefully. Who is Setsuna? The Mizuki did not answer. The thread shivered again. This time, the whisper came with an image so brief Tsunade almost missed it. Snow falling over black water. A child standing alone among broken houses. Small hands covered in ash. And behind her, An entire village with its bonds cut so cleanly that even the dead seemed forgotten. Yura began to cry silently. Mei's voice finally came. When I became Mizukage, I ordered the old purge archives opened, not publicly, not yet, I thought, she swallowed. I thought if I knew every name, I could begin repairing what the bloody mist had done. Tsunade said nothing. There was one file, Mei continued. Half-burned, a list of children from a hidden bloodline family, all marked deceased, all except one. The blue thread bent toward Mei. The Mizukage did not move away. Setsuna, Tsunade said. Mei closed her eyes. I sent people to find her. And they found an empty village, signs that someone had lived there after the purge, years after. A child, maybe, then a girl, then no one. Mei opened her eyes. They were bright with anger, but not at Tsunade. I told myself she was dead. The thread pulsed once, almost gently. Yura whispered, "She is not dead." The room fell silent. Outside, the summit continued somewhere beyond the door. Leaders talked, guards shifted. Snow touched the windows. The world, unaware of the thing moving under its skin, pretended peace was a finished task. Tsunade looked down at the map, every hollowed victim, every unresolved grief, every severed bond, every thread bending toward Naruto, and at the far end, a name from Kiri's buried sins whispering back. "This stays between us," Tsunade said. Mei looked at her sharply. Tsunade's expression was hard as stone. No council, no elders, no public warning. No panic. Yura lifted her head. "But if people don't know," "If people know," Tsunade cut in, "they panic. If this thing feeds on grief and fear, then mass panic turns into a banquet." Mei's gaze lowered in grim agreement. "And Naruto?" Mei asked. The question landed like a blade. Tsunade almost answered too quickly. Of course they had to tell him. He was the center, the target, the heart every thread bent toward. He had earned truth more than anyone alive, and that was exactly why he could not have it. Not yet. Tsunade saw it with brutal clarity. Naruto would not hide. Naruto would not stand behind guards. Naruto would not let others suffer while he remained protected. If they told him people were hollowing because their bonds led to him, he would run straight into the center of the wound and offer his own heart as the bandage. That was who he was. That was why the world loved him. That was why the world might lose him. Tsunade hated herself before she even spoke. "No," she said. Yura stared at her. Mei's eyes sharpened. "You would keep this from him?" "I would keep a blade from his throat until I know how sharp it is. He is not a child." "No," Tsunade said, voice roughening. "He is worse. He is a man who still thinks being hurt first is the same thing as protecting everyone else." Mei said nothing. Tsunade stepped closer to the map. "I know Naruto. Kakashi knows him. Sakura knows him. Every person he has ever saved knows him. If he learns this thing wants his heart, he will hand it directions." The words hurt because they were true. Mei turned toward the window. Snow slid down the glass in thin white lines. "In Kiri," she said softly, "we used to protect children by teaching them not to feel. We called it strength." Tsunade's jaw tightened. Did it work? Mei's reflection in the window looked older than her face. It built a village of ghosts. The words sat between them. Then Mei turned back. "If we hide the truth from him, we risk doing the same thing." Tsunade looked at the glowing convergence point. A golden sun drawn in thread. "I know." And still, Tsunade's eyes closed for one heartbeat, Nawaki smiling with her necklace around his neck. Dan promising dreams with blood in his lungs. Jiraiya leaving with that stupid grin. Naruto, alive. Naruto still alive. Her eyes opened. And still. Mei studied her for a long moment. There was no judgment in her face now, only understanding. That made it worse. "You love him," Mei said. Tsunade almost laughed. The sound would have been ugly. "Half the world loves him." "That is not what I said." Tsunade looked away first. For all her power, for all her titles, for all the bodies she had put back together with hands steadier than steel, she had never learned what to do when someone named the wound correctly. "He is my student's teammate," she said. "My village's hero, the future Hokage." Mei's gaze softened. "And?" Tsunade's voice dropped. "And a brat who kept reaching for me when I had forgotten how to reach back." Mei accepted that answer like a sacred thing. Then she looked at Yura. The young censor wiped her eyes and tried to sit straighter. Mei said, "Can you hide the traces?" "Some," Yura answered. Not from the thing itself. But from other sensors, yes. Normal chakra sensors won't see anything anyway. Tsunade nodded. Good, we need a containment plan. A quiet one, Mei said. Medical cover stories. Fatigue, delayed trauma responses, chakra exhaustion. Nothing false enough to be exposed. Nothing true enough to cause panic. Mei's eyes sharpened with strategy. Kiri can send heart sensors under diplomatic exchange credentials. Officially, they will be helping map war trauma among displaced civilians. Konoha will open hospital archives to your team, Tsunade said. Unofficially, Kakashi. I'll tell him enough to keep him from stepping on the trap, not enough to make him look at Naruto differently. Mei gave her a dry look. You think Hate Kakashi will accept half an answer? No. But he'll recognize a battlefield when he sees one. And Sakura, Tsunade hesitated. That hurt too. Sakura is brilliant, she said, and she loves Naruto like family. That makes her useful and dangerous. Dangerous because she would tell him, dangerous because she might not, and he would know. Mei nodded slowly. They were already building walls. Both of them knew it. Neither stopped. Tsunade pointed to the blue thread's origin. We start there. The purge site. Setsuna's village. Mei's face hardened. I will send a team. No, Tsunade said. You will send no one who cannot remain calm if they find ghosts. Mei's eyes flashed. Do not mistake my guilt for weakness. I'm not. I'm counting on it. For a moment, the two women stared each other down, then Mei smiled faintly. This one was real, though bitter. You are difficult. I've been told. By many people, I assume. Mostly men who later regretted speaking. Despite everything, Yura gave a small, shaky laugh. The sound was fragile, human. The blue thread dimmed slightly. All three women noticed. Tsunade's gaze snapped to it. Mei inhaled. Laughter weakens it? Not laughter, Yura whispered. Connection. Tsunade stared at the thread. Mei's expression changed into something like wonder and dread combined. Connection, not chakra, not power, not weapons. The smallest shared warmth in a dusty room had made the thread retreat. For the first time since opening the reports, Tsunade felt something besides fear. Not hope, not yet, but the shape of a possible path. Then the thread pulsed again, and the cold returned. Yura flinched. It heard, she said. Tsunade's brief hope vanished. Mei stepped closer. Heard what? Yura looked between them. That we noticed. The room went very still. Tsunade felt every year of war settle onto her shoulders. Mei's voice became calm in the way oceans were calm before swallowing ships. How long do we have? Yura pressed a hand over her heart. I don't know. Time feels strange around it. It is not moving like a person. It is moving like, she struggled. Like a wound remembering it is open. Tsunade folded the maps with swift, precise hands. Then we move faster. Mei collected both reports and resealed them with fresh wax from the lantern. No official record, no witnesses, no summit minutes, just three women in a storage room standing over proof that the world's peace had a hidden crack running through its heart. Tsunade turned to Mei. If we do this, we do it completely. No village politics, no old grudges. No secrets between us about this threat. Mei lifted an eyebrow. You say that while proposing we lie to Naruto Uzumaki. Tsunade's mouth tightened. Yes, Mei held her gaze. Then slowly the Mizukage extended her hand, not as a politician, not as a rival. As a woman standing before a grief large enough to devour nations. Tsunade Senju, Mei said quietly, Kirigakure will help guard the heart at the center of this world. Tsunade looked at Mei's hand. For a heartbeat, she saw Dan's hand slipping from hers, Nawaki's hand waving goodbye. Jiraiya's hand raised over his shoulder. Then Naruto's hand, small once, stubborn always, reaching out to pull her back into the world. She took Mei's hand. Konoha will do the same, Tsunade said. Their grip tightened. The lantern flame steadied. Between them, unseen by ordinary eyes, a new thread formed. It was not gold like Naruto's, not blue like the wound from Kiri. It was red and green and bright at the edges, fragile but real. Yura stared at it, tears gathering again. Mei noticed. What is it? The young censor smiled sadly. A pact. Tsunade released Mei's hand. Then let's make sure it holds. They left the storage room separately. Mei first, face restored to diplomatic calm, every inch the Mizukage. Yura followed 2 minutes later, pale but composed. Tsunade waited last, burning the scrap notes in the lantern flame until only ash remained. When she returned to the summit hall, Kakashi looked up from his seat. His visible eye lingered on her face for 1 second too long. "You stretched your legs," he said. "I did. Must have been a serious walk." "Don't start." Kakashi hummed and turned a page. Across the room, Mei resumed her seat and lifted a fresh cup of tea. This time she drank. The meeting continued. Funding routes, patrol schedules, memorial agreements, border disputes, the world rebuilding itself in ink. Tsunade answered when spoken to. She argued when necessary. She threatened Kuretsuchi once and Darui twice. She even managed not to break the table when a minor lord suggested reducing hospital allocations for long-term trauma cases. But beneath every word, she felt the map, the threads, the convergence. Naruto. By sunset, the summit recessed for the evening. Outside, snow had stopped falling. The sky over the land of iron burned orange, then red, then deep violet. Tsunade stood alone on a balcony overlooking the courtyard. Below, shinobi escorts moved between guest houses. Samurai lit lamps along the paths. Somewhere in the distance, someone laughed. The sound hurt. She gripped the railing. "You're going to hate me for this, brat," she whispered. The cold wind carried the words away. For a moment, she imagined Naruto beside her, bright-eyed and indignant. "Granny, what are you talking about? If something's wrong, just tell me. I can handle it, yes." That was the problem. He could handle pain, he could handle fear. He could handle enemies, loneliness, hatred, and impossible burdens. But Tsunade was no longer sure anyone could handle being the heart every broken bond in the world wanted to use. A soft step sounded behind her. She did not turn. Mei came to stand beside her. For a while, neither spoke. Then Mei said, "The name Setsuna appears in one surviving archive." Tsunade looked at her. Mei's face remained turned toward the darkening sky. She belonged to a family whose bloodline was said to perceive emotional attachments, not chakra, bonds. The old regime considered them dangerous. Because they could sense loyalty? Because they could sense cruelty? Mei said, "It is harder to build a village on murder when children can feel every thread being cut." Tsunade closed her eyes. Mei continued, "The file says Setsuna died at age 6, but she didn't." "No." Below them, a group of young shinobi from different villages crossed the courtyard together, arguing about food. One from Kumo, one from Suna, one from Konoha, a Kiri girl laughing behind her sleeve, a world Naruto had helped make possible, a world still standing on graves. Mei's voice softened. "If Setsuna is alive, she has been alone for a very long time." Tsunade heard what Mei did not say. Alone people were dangerous. Not because loneliness made them evil, because loneliness made any voice sound like salvation if it promised the pain would stop. Tsunade looked toward the horizon. Somewhere beyond mountains and roads, Naruto was probably eating too much ramen, arguing with Konohamaru, laughing too loudly, pretending he was fine when people called him hero. Unaware that 2Cage had just decided to guard his heart without asking permission. Unaware that a forgotten girl from Kiri had whispered through a severed thread. Unaware that the war had left behind something no army could fight. Then, far below in the courtyard, every lamp flickered at once. Tsunade and Mei froze. The air turned cold, not winter cold, empty cold. For one breath, every sound vanished, no footsteps, no voices, no wind. Then a whisper passed through the balcony, not in the ear, in the heart. This time both women heard it, a child's voice, gentle as snow over graves. "I remember the sun." Tsunade's blood turned to ice. Mei gripped the railing. The lamp steadied, sound returned. Below, nobody seemed to have noticed, but on the balcony rail between Tsunade's hands, frost had formed in the shape of a thin, broken thread. Mei stared at it. Tsunade did not move. The whisper came one last time, softer than before. "And soon he will remember me." The frost cracked. The thread shape split in two, and somewhere far away in the village hidden in the leaves, Naruto Uzumaki woke from a dream of someone crying his name. Naruto Uzumaki woke with tears on his face. For 3 seconds, he did not move. That alone would have frightened anyone who knew him well. Naruto did not wake gently. He woke like a thrown kunai all at once, loud, restless, already reaching for the day before the day had agreed to begin. He kicked blankets, knocked pillows to the floor, forgot where he had placed his sandals, and usually complained to nobody in particular that mornings should have better timing. But that morning he lay still. The room was dark, except for the pale gray light leaking through the curtains. Konoha had not fully woken yet. Somewhere outside, a cart rolled over stone. A bird called once from a rooftop. The village breathed in that quiet space between night patrols and breakfast smoke. Naruto stared at the ceiling. A voice lingered in his chest, not his ears, his chest. "I remember the sun." The words were fading already, dissolving like mist under daylight, but the feeling remained. Cold fingers around his heart. A sadness so old it did not know how to become anger anymore. He sat up slowly. His hand went to his chest. Nothing hurt. That somehow made it worse. Kurama stirred within him, one red eye opening in the deep chamber of their shared mind. "Brat," Naruto closed his eyes. "You felt that?" A pause. The fox's voice came low, rougher than usual. "I felt something looking through a crack it should not have found." Naruto swallowed. That was not the kind of answer he wanted before breakfast. Was it chakra? No. Genjutsu? No. Some kind of dream thing? Kurama's tails shifted in the darkness of Naruto's inner world. Dreams come from inside. That came from outside. Naruto got out of bed. The floor was cold under his feet. His apartment was still too quiet, even after all these years. He had newer furniture now, gifts from people who had stopped pretending they did not care. A better table. A proper shelf. A plant that Sakura had threatened him about until he remembered to water it. Framed photos sat near the window. Team 7, Uruka-sensei, the cage after the war, a ridiculous picture of Killer Bee posing while Naruto tried not to laugh. A life. A real one. So why did the room feel, for one heartbeat, like something had stepped inside and counted every person his heart had ever reached for? Naruto pulled on his jacket. Then he opened the window and looked over the village. Konoha was still Konoha. The Hokage monument watched over everything. New buildings stood where pain had left craters. Fresh paint covered old scars. Shops were beginning to open. Shinobi crossed rooftops. Civilians swept doorways. A child ran after a dog carrying a slipper. The world had not ended. Naruto let out a breath. Maybe it was just a dream. Kurama did not answer. That was answer enough. By sunrise, Naruto was at Ikaraku. Chuchai had not even finished setting out the morning bowls when Naruto slid onto the stool. "Old man," Naruto said, trying for normal and landing somewhere too bright. "Tell me you've got something ready." Chuchai looked over his shoulder and smiled. "For you, always." Iame laughed from the back. "That means he started preparing 10 minutes ago because he sensed your stomach approaching." "Hey, my stomach is a loyal customer. Your stomach should have its own tab," she said. Naruto grinned. For a moment the dream loosened its grip. Steam rose. Bowls clinked. The smell of broth filled the small shop, warm and familiar. Naruto wrapped his hands around the bowl when Chuchai set it down, letting the heat sink into his fingers. "Thanks. Eat before it gets cold." Naruto did. For 3 bites, everything was perfect. Then the stool beside him creaked. Naruto glanced over. A man sat there, middle-aged. Konoha civilian, thin face, tired eyes, hair tied carelessly at the back. Naruto recognized him after a moment. Daichai, a carpenter who had helped rebuild part of the academy after the war. He had a daughter who used to wave at Naruto every time he passed the market. The man stared at the menu board. Chuchai smiled. "Morning, Daichai. Usual?" Daichai blinked. "Usual?" he asked. Chuchai paused. Iame looked up from the counter. Naruto lowered his chopsticks. Chuchai's smile did not vanish, but it changed. "Miso with extra bamboo shoots. You've ordered it every Friday for years." Daichai looked confused. "Have I?" A small silence formed inside the shop. Naruto turned toward him more fully. "Hey, you okay?" Daichai looked at Naruto. His eyes were not empty. That was the frightening part. They were present, focused, alive, but there was no weight behind them. No recognition of the moment, no embarrassment, no warmth, no irritation, no anything deep enough to hold on to. "I'm fine," Daichai said politely. I-Aim came closer. "Daichai-san, did you sleep?" "I think so." "You think?" Daichai looked at the menu again. Outside the shop, a little girl's voice called, "Papa!" Naruto's head turned. A child of 8 or 9 ran toward the stand, scarf bouncing against her chest, cheeks red from morning cold. She stopped near Daichai and grabbed his sleeve. "Papa, you forgot my lunch." Daichai looked down at her hand. Then at her face. The girl smiled, but it faded when he did not smile back. "Papa," Daichai slowly pulled his sleeve free. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "Do I know you?" The girl froze. Naruto stood so fast his stool scraped backward. Chuchai's face went pale. I-Aim covered her mouth. The little girl stared at her father as if he had turned into a stranger wearing his skin. "Papa," she whispered. Daichai frowned faintly, not with cruelty, but with mild concern. "You should find your parents." The child made a sound Naruto never wanted to hear again, a small, broken sound. Like a string snapping, Naruto moved, but I-Aim was faster. She came around the counter and pulled the girl into her arms. Chuchai placed both hands on the counter, knuckles white. Naruto grabbed Daichai's shoulder, not hard, just enough. "Hey," Naruto said, voice low. "Look at me," Daichai did. Naruto reached with his senses, not aggressively, not like searching for an enemy. He let his chakra brush the edges of Daichai's presence, looking for poison, disruption, genjutsu, anything. The man's chakra was normal, stable, healthy. That made Naruto's stomach turn. Kurama growled deep inside him. Naruto's grip tightened. Daichai did not react. No fear, no offense, no recognition, nothing. Naruto whispered, "What happened to you?" Daichai only blinked. By the time the medics arrived, the girl had stopped crying. That was worse than the crying. She sat on a bench behind the ramen stand with I-Aim's arms around her, staring at her father as the medics checked him. Daichai answered every question calmly. Name, age, address, occupation. He remembered all of it. He remembered his daughter's name, Hana. He remembered teaching her to hold a hammer safely. He remembered building her a little wooden fox after the war because she had asked for the hero animal. He remembered carrying her during a storm, but when she touched his hand, nothing in him moved. "I know the facts." He told the medic, voice calm, "but I don't feel that they belong to me." Naruto stepped back. The morning had become too bright. A crowd had begun to gather, whispering, watching. Naruto hated the sound immediately. Fear moved through groups like smoke through dry wood. "Everyone back," he said. No one moved. Naruto turned. He did not raise his voice. Back. Now the crowd obeyed. Not because he was famous. Because for the first time in a long time, Naruto sounded like someone who had fought a war. A medic approached him. "Naruto-sama, we'll take him to the hospital." Naruto still hated the sama, but he ignored it. "I'm coming." The medic hesitated. That hesitation told Naruto something. His eyes narrowed. "Why? No reason, we just—" "Naruto." The voice came from behind him. Tsunade stood at the edge of the street. For a moment, relief hit him so hard he almost smiled. If anyone could fix strange sickness, it was her. If anything had gone wrong in a body, Tsunade would punch death itself until it apologized. But Tsunade was not looking at Daichai first. She was looking at Naruto. Too carefully. Naruto noticed. He always noticed when people he loved were trying not to show fear. "Granny," he said, "you need to see this." "I will." He doesn't recognize his own daughter. "I heard." Naruto stepped closer. "His chakra's fine, no genjutsu, I checked." "I said I heard." The sharpness in her voice made him stop. Then she softened, but only by force. "Go home, Naruto." The street went silent. Naruto stared at her. "What? I'll handle this." "Yeah, I know you'll handle it. I'm helping." "No." The word landed harder than it should have. Naruto's face changed. Not anger yet, hurt first. Tsunade saw it and something inside her twisted, but she did not take the word back. "This is a medical case," she said. "I've seen weird medical cases before. And you've also just come off war recovery, political missions, and more stress than anyone should carry." Naruto gave a short, disbelieving laugh. "Are you serious right now, Naruto?" "No, don't Naruto me." His voice lowered so only she could hear. Something is wrong, really wrong. I felt something last night. Kurama felt it too, and now this happens. Tsunade's heart slammed once against her ribs. She kept her face still. What did you feel? Naruto searched her eyes. She should not have asked. The moment she asked, he knew the question mattered. A voice, he said slowly. A girl, maybe. She said she remembered the sun. Tsunade's blood chilled. Behind her, hidden in the shadow of a roofline, Mei's Kiri sensor Yura went rigid. Naruto's gaze flicked toward the roof. Tsunade moved before he could fully turn. Go home, she said again. This time it was not a request. Naruto looked at her like she had slapped him. Why are you hiding something? Tsunade forced herself to hold his gaze. I'm trying to stop a panic. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now. His jaw tightened. For one terrible second, Tsunade saw the child he had been, the boy outside the room, while adults whispered about him, around him, over him, never to him. Then she saw the man he had become, harden over that wound. Fine, Naruto said. Tsunade almost relaxed. Then he added, I'll ask Kakashi. He turned. Tsunade caught his wrist. Naruto looked down at her hand, so did she. She had grabbed him too quickly, too desperately. His eyes lifted back to hers. Now there was no confusion in them, only certainty. You are hiding something, he said. Tsunade let go. Her fingers felt cold. Naruto? She said quietly, trust me. The words were a cruelty. She knew it as soon as she said them, because Naruto did trust her. That was why this hurt. He looked past her to Daichai, who was being guided away by medics. Hana tried to follow, but Iame held her back gently, promising she could come soon. Naruto watched the little girl reach for a father who no longer reached back. His voice, when it came, was very soft. I do trust you. Then he walked away, not home. Tsunade knew that immediately. He moved toward the Hokage Tower. She closed her eyes. Behind her, Mei stepped from the alley, veiled as a diplomatic observer, face calm but eyes troubled. That went poorly, Mei said. Tsunade opened her eyes. You think? Yura dropped from the roof beside them, pale and shaking. He heard the same phrase, the censor whispered. I noticed. Tsunade said. Mei watched Naruto's orange jacket disappear into the crowd. He is harder to lie to than most men. He had a lot of practice being lied to. Mei looked at her. Tsunade did not look back. The hospital basement had been sealed. Officially, Daichai was being treated for a rare post-war dissociative condition. Unofficially, every medic in the room had been handpicked by Tsunade, vetted by Shizune, and sworn to quiet under threat of paperwork so terrifying that several looked more frightened of the forms than the illness. Daichai sat on the examination bed. Hana waited upstairs with Iame. That had been Tsunade's first order. No children in the room, not for what she was about to attempt. Mei stood near the wall, arms folded. Yura remained beside her, one hand pressed over her heart. Two Konoha medics monitored Daichai's vitals. Shizune stood at Tsunade's side, face pale with worry and concentration. Tsunade rolled up her sleeves. If this is physical, she said, I'll find it. No one argued. Her hands glowed green. The room filled with soft medical light. Tsunade began at the skull, scanning nerve pathways, brain activity, micro-damage, old trauma. Nothing. She moved to the spine, nothing. Heart, nothing. Chakra network, nothing. 10,000 details passed beneath her senses. Blood flow, muscle tone, organ response, hormone levels, electrical impulses, healthy, too healthy. A body with no sign of the wound that had stolen the man from his own life. Tsunade's chakra sharpened. Shizune noticed. Tsunade-sama! I know. She increased the depth of the scan. The green light brightened. Daichai blinked calmly. No reaction. Tsunade shifted techniques. A diagnostic method she had developed for coma patients. Then a battlefield trauma scan. Then a delicate neural pulse meant to stimulate memory pathways without damaging tissue. Daichai's fingers twitched. Tsunade leaned in. Daichai, think of Hana. The man's eyes moved. Hana, he repeated, your daughter. Yes. What do you feel? Daichai's brow furrowed. Tsunade pushed a little more chakra into the technique. Shizune's voice tightened. Tsunade-sama, his pathways, I see them. Your daughter. Tsunade said again. The storm, you carried her home in the storm. Remember the rain. Remember her hands around your neck. Daichai's eyes filled with tears. For one heartbeat, hope flared. Then he said, "That sounds very sad." Tsunade froze. The tears slid down his face, but his expression did not change. "It sounds like something a father would feel," Daichai said. "I'm sorry, I don't know where it is." Tsunade's hands stopped glowing. The room went silent. A medic looked away. Shizune pressed her lips together. Mei's eyes lowered. Yura began to tremble. Tsunade stared at Daichai. She had failed before. She had lost patience before. She had watched life leave bodies under her hands and learned to keep working because grief could come later. But this was different. There was no wound to close, no poison to purge, no enemy chakra to fight. The man was sitting in front of her alive, breathing, thinking, speaking, and still something essential had been cut away so completely that all the strength in her hands meant nothing. Tsunade took one step back, then another, her fist clenched. The floor cracked beneath her heel. Shizune whispered, "Tsunade-sama." Tsunade turned away. Mei spoke softly, "This is not a failure of medicine." Tsunade laughed once without humor. "Don't comfort me. I am not. I am naming the battlefield." Tsunade's eyes snapped toward her. Mei held her gaze. "Chakra cannot touch this." The words were not accusation, they were law. Tsunade hated them because she knew they were true. Yura stepped forward, hesitant. "May I?" Tsunade looked at Daichai. The man sat patiently, empty tears still drying on his cheeks. "Do it." Yura approached the bed. She did not touch him at first. Her hand hovered near his chest. She inhaled. The temperature in the room dropped. Daichai looked at her politely. "Are you another doctor?" "No," Yura whispered. "I'm sorry." "For what?" She closed her eyes. The lanterns flickered. No chakra moved. But everyone felt the shift, a pressure behind the ribs, a sudden awareness of every person they had loved and failed to call. One medic gasped. Shizune gripped the edge of the instrument tray. Mei's face tightened. Tsunade forced herself not to flinch. Yura opened her eyes. They were filled with gold light. "I see the ends," she whispered. Tsunade stepped closer. "Explain." His threads were cut, not torn, cut cleanly. Whoever did it wanted no struggle. Mei's voice was cold. "Can they be tied?" Yura's lips shook. "Maybe, but not by force." "What does that mean?" Shizune asked. Yura looked at Daichai with unbearable sadness. Someone would have to find the truth still attached to the cut end, something real enough to pull him back. Not facts, not memories, feeling. Tsunade's mouth tightened. "Hana," Yura shook her head slightly. "She is the deepest thread." But the cut was made around her. If she reaches too hard, the wound widens. The room seemed to tilt. Tsunade whispered, "You're saying his daughter could make it worse." "I'm saying grief feeds the thing that cut him." Mei closed her eyes. Rule confirmed, fear and grief were not just reactions. They were food. Tsunade wanted to punch something. There was nothing to punch. The door opened. A masked Anbu appeared. Tsunade turned sharply. "I said no interruptions." The Anbu bowed. "Forgive me. Hokage-sama requests your presence immediately." Tsunade's eyes narrowed. "Why?" The Anbu hesitated. That hesitation was becoming the sound of disaster. "There has been another case." Shizune went pale. Mei's face hardened. Tsunade said, "Where?" "The memorial stone." Naruto reached the memorial before the medics did. Of course he did. Kakashi had tried to stop him with words, which was usually one of Kakashi's better weapons. It had not worked. Naruto had stormed out of the Hokage Tower halfway through a careful explanation that explained nothing, leaving Kakashi with one hand in his hair, and a look in his eye that said he knew more than he had been told and hated everyone involved. Now Naruto stood before the stone. The names carved into it caught the afternoon light. A small crowd had gathered at a distance, held back by shinobi. Sakura was there, medical bag in hand, face tense. Sai stood beside her, expression blank in the way that meant he was watching everything. Shikamaru stood near the trees, jaw tight, eyes narrowed with exhausted intelligence. At the base of the memorial sat a young man in a Chunin vest. His name was Haru. Naruto knew him, not well, but enough. Haru had fought in the Fourth War with a communications unit. His older brother had died on the first day. Since the war ended, Haru came to the memorial every week with 2 rice bowls, one for himself, and one placed neatly before his brother's name. Today, one rice bowl sat untouched on the ground. Haru stared at it with mild curiosity. Sakura knelt in front of him. "Haru, can you hear me?" "Yes." "Do you know where you are?" "The memorial stone." "Why did you come here?" Haru looked at the rice bowl. "I don't know." Naruto closed his eyes. Sakura's hand glowed green as she scanned him. Naruto already knew what she would find. Nothing. When Tsunade arrived with Mei and Yura, Naruto turned. His expression was not angry now. That was worse. It was controlled. Naruto had learned control in the war, and Tsunade had never hated that fact more. "This is the same thing," he said. Tsunade did not answer. Sakura looked up. "Shishu, I can't find any damage." "I know." Sakura blinked. You know, Tsunade hated how quickly Sakura understood that she had been left out. Shikamaru's gaze moved from Tsunade to Mei to Yura. "Troublesome," he murmured. "This is bigger than a medical case." Naruto pointed toward Yura. "And she knows something." Yura flinched. Mei stepped slightly in front of her. Naruto noticed that too. He looked at Mei. "Ms. Yukige-sama, why are Kiri's sensors in Konoha checking our people?" Mei's face remained diplomatic. "Because similar cases appeared in the land of water," the crowd murmured. Tsunade's head snapped toward the civilians. Too much, too public. Shikamaru lifted a hand, and Konoha shinobi began pushing the perimeter farther back. Naruto did not look away from Mei. "So this is happening in other villages?" "Yes," Mei said. Tsunade's jaw tightened. It was not quite the truth they had agreed to give, but it was not the lie either. Naruto turned to Tsunade. "You knew!" Tsunade's silence answered. Sakura stood slowly. "Shishu." Tsunade felt the floor of her choices cracking beneath her. Before she could speak, Haru made a sound, not pain. Recognition. Everyone turned. The air above the memorial stone had changed. At first, Naruto thought it was heat shimmer. Then the afternoon light bent inward, gathering into thin strands. They hung in the air like threads caught in sunlight. Yura gasped. "No," Mei moved. "Everyone back." A girl stood among the threads. She was not there, and yet she was. Her outline flickered, pale and soft, as if formed from mist and memory. She looked no older than 17, maybe younger. Long dark hair drifted around her face, though there was no wind. Her eyes were gray like Yura's, but deeper, hollowed by a sadness too calm to be madness. She wore no headband, no village symbol, only a simple robe the color of old snow. Naruto felt Kurama rise inside him, all teeth and warning. The girl looked at the memorial stone. "So many names," she said. Her voice was gentle. The crowd had gone silent. Tsunade stepped forward, chakra gathering in her fist by instinct. The girl turned toward her. "That will not touch me." Tsunade stopped, not because she was afraid, because she believed her. Mei's voice was very quiet. "Setsuna." The girl's gaze shifted. A small smile appeared, not happy, remembering the woman who opened the old graves. Mei's face tightened. "You know me. I know the shape of your regret." The words hit like a blade slipped between ribs. Naruto looked between them. "Who is she?" No one answered. Setsuna looked at him then. Everything else seemed to dim. Her eyes widened slightly, not in surprise, in recognition so intimate that Naruto took one involuntary step back. "The sun," she whispered. Naruto's throat tightened. "You were in my dream." "I was near your dream," Setsuna said. "Not inside. I would not enter without invitation." That politeness made her more frightening, not less. Sakura moved closer to Naruto. Sai's ink shifted at his wrist, ready. Shikamaru's shadow stretched subtly along the ground. Setsuna noticed all of it. "You still reach for weapons," she said sadly. "Even after learning what weapons leave behind." Tsunade's voice cut through the air. "What did you do to Daichai and Haru?" Setsuna looked at Haru. The young man stared up at her, expression blank but attentive. "I gave them rest." Sakura's eyes flashed. "You stole their hearts." Setsuna's gaze softened. "No, their hearts were wounds. I closed them." Naruto's fists clenched. That little girl cried because her father looked at her like a stranger. Pain crossed Setsuna's face for a moment. She looked exactly as young as her outline suggested. "I know," she whispered. "That is the cruelty of bonds. A child loves, and so the child can be abandoned. A father loves, and so the father can lose. A brother loves, and the brother carries a name carved into stone until it becomes heavier than his own life." She turned to Haru. Haru came here every week to feed a dead man. Haru blinked. Setsuna knelt before him. Mei took one step forward. "Do not touch him." Setsuna paused. Her hand hovered near Haru's cheek. "I have already touched him." Yura shook her head, terrified. "Please stop." Setsuna looked at Yura with sudden tenderness. "Little cousin of the old sight. You still feel the threads. Does it not hurt?" Yura's eyes filled with tears. "Yes," she whispered. "Then you understand." "No," Yura said, voice breaking. "I understand why it hurts. I don't understand why you would make the world empty." Setsuna's smile faded, because empty things do not grieve. Then she touched Haru's chest. Naruto moved, faster than thought. Golden chakra flared around him, Kurama's power rising like sunlight made solid. He crossed the distance in a blink, hand outstretched to pull Haru away. His fingers passed through Setsuna's wrist. Cold exploded through his arm. Not physical cold, memory cold. For one horrifying heartbeat, Naruto felt every goodbye he had never been allowed to say. His parents fading back into the afterlife, Neji falling in front of him. Jiraiya's absence like a hole he still did not know how to fill. Obito smiling as if forgiveness had cost him everything. Kurama silent after almost dying with him. Naruto stumbled. Sakura caught him. "Naruto," his chakra cloak flickered. Setsuna did not attack. She watched him with tears in her eyes. "You carry so many," she whispered. "How are you still standing?" Naruto forced himself upright. "Because they mattered." Setsuna's expression twisted. For the first time, something like pain cracked her calm. "That is what makes it cruel." Behind her, Haru inhaled sharply. His eyes widened. He looked at the memorial stone. At the rice bowl, at the name carved into stone. "Niai-san," he whispered. Sakura gasped. His response, hope, lasted half a breath, then the golden thread above Haru's chest snapped. The sound was not loud. Everyone heard it. Haru's face went blank. The rice bowl rolled from his hand. Naruto stared. Tsunade stepped forward, voice deadly. "What did you do?" Setsuna stood. "I showed you." Mei's chakra rose, acidic vapor curling faintly at the corner of her mouth. Setsuna looked at her. "Do not poison the air, Mizukage. The air has carried enough screaming." Mei froze. That sentence struck too close to history. Tsunade moved next, fist cocked, strength enough to shatter stone. Her punch passed through Setsuna's shoulder and cracked the ground behind her. Setsuna did not even sway. Tsunade's eyes widened despite herself. Rule made flesh. Chakra could not wound resonance. Setsuna turned back to Naruto. "The severance is waking," she said. Naruto's breathing was heavy. "The what?" "The mercy left behind when war ended but grief did not." Setsuna's voice softened. "It has touched villages, graves, homes, and hearts. It has cut small threads first, gentle ones, frayed ones, but it cannot finish while the greatest knot remains." Yura whispered. "No." Setsuna looked toward her. "You saw the map." Naruto turned sharply toward Tsunade. "The map." Tsunade said nothing. The betrayal in his eyes burned worse than any wound. Setsuna watched them all with sorrow. "You hid it from him because you love him." Naruto's face changed. Setsuna continued, "Love does that. It lies, it clutches, it builds walls and calls them shelter. It ties one heart to another and then weeps when the thread is pulled tight." Tsunade's voice shook with anger. "You don't know anything about love." Setsuna looked at her. "I know every place it was cut." Silence. Then Setsuna lifted her hand. Above the memorial stone, threads appeared. Thousands of them, some bright, some dim, some frayed almost to nothing. They stretched from names carved in stone outward into the village, into the crowd, into shinobi standing frozen beneath the trees. Naruto saw one thread touch Sakura's chest and run toward a name he could not see. Another brushed Kakashi, who had arrived silently at the edge of the clearing, his visible eye dark. One trembled near Shikamaru and vanished toward the Nara district. Threads everywhere. Bonds everywhere. The village was not stone and wood and missions. It was connection, a living web. And far above it, unseen by ordinary eyes until Setsuna revealed it, countless threads bent toward Naruto. Sakura looked up. Her face went white. "Naruto?" He stared at the threads converging around him, his breath caught. He had felt loved before. Awkwardly, gratefully. sometimes with embarrassment. He had never seen it, never seen how many people had tied hope, gratitude, friendship, guilt, memory, and belief to him. It should have felt warm, it felt terrifying. Setsuna's voice became almost reverent. You are the center of the world's unfinished grief. Naruto shook his head. No. Yes. No, you have spent your life refusing to let severed things remain severed. Enemies became friends, monsters became family, villages became allies. The dead left dreams in your hands and you carried them. You are not merely loved, Naruto Uzumaki. She stepped closer. Sakura raised a kunai, though her hand trembled. Setsuna ignored it. You are used. Naruto flinched. Tsunade's face twisted. Enough. Setsuna looked at her sadly. He deserves the truth you denied him. Naruto did not look away from Setsuna. What does it want with me? For the first time, Setsuna's calm became something vast and solemn. The severance needs one final thread to complete itself. Yura was crying openly now. Mei whispered, Setsuna, don't! Setsuna's gaze remained on Naruto, the thread at the center of the world. The one bond that touches almost every other bond still living. If that thread is severed, the web collapses. No more grief. No more longing. No more children crying for fathers who cannot return. No more villages built on graves. No more war carried in the chest. Naruto's voice was barely audible. And that thread is mine? Setsuna smiled sadly. No, Naruto Uzumaki. The air went cold, not yours. She lifted one pale hand and pointed directly at his chest, your heart. The threads vanished. The memorial clearing erupted into motion. Sakura lunged forward. Sai released ink beasts. Shikamaru's shadow shot across the ground. Kakashi's hand sparked with lightning out of pure reflex. Mei's vapor rose. Tsunade stepped between Setsuna and Naruto like a wall that had once been a woman and was now only protection. None of it mattered. Setsuna's form dissolved into pale strands. Before she vanished, her voice passed through every person present, gentle, merciful, terrible. Do not fear. Soon it will stop hurting. Then she was gone. The cold remained. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Haru, sitting at the base of the memorial, looked around politely and asked why everyone seemed upset. Naruto did not hear him. He stood in the center of the clearing, surrounded by people who loved him, people who had lied to him, people who had trusted him, people whose unseen threads bent toward his heart. He looked at Tsunade. She opened her mouth. No words came. Naruto's voice broke the silence. How long? Tsunade closed her eyes. Naruto? How long have you known? Mei answered because Tsunade could not. Since yesterday, Naruto laughed once. It was not relief. Yesterday, Tsunade stepped closer. We were trying to understand it before involving you, before involving me. He pressed a hand to his chest. It wants my heart. Sakura whispered, Naruto. He looked at her, and his anger faltered at the fear in her face. That was the worst part. He could be angry at lies. He could not stay angry at fear, not when it came from people he loved. His shoulders lowered. But the hurt remained. Kakashi finally spoke. Tsunade-sama, Mei-sama, we need a full briefing, now. There was no laziness in his voice, no softness. The Hokage had arrived. Tsunade nodded once. Naruto turned toward the memorial stone. His eyes moved over the names, Haru's brother, Neji. So many others, so many threads. Then he looked at Haru, hollowed and calm, at Sakura, frightened, at Tsunade, guilty, at Mei, carrying old sins from a village Naruto had barely begun to understand, at Yura, trembling under the weight of things no one else could see. His voice came quietly. Can we save them? No one answered quickly enough. Naruto understood. He always understood silence. So he turned away from the memorial and started walking toward the Hokage Tower. This time, no one tried to stop him. Tsunade watched him go, and the shape of the mistake they had made opened beneath her feet. They had tried to keep his heart safe by hiding the wound. But Naruto's heart had never been safe because it was hidden. It had survived because again and again he had thrown it open and somehow made others remember they had hearts too. Mei came to stand beside her. The severance knows he knows, Mei said. Tsunade's eyes remained on Naruto's back. Yes, and Naruto knows we lied. Yes. Mei was quiet for a moment, then she said, the pact is already cracking. Tsunade looked at the memorial stone, at the rice bowl left untouched beneath a dead brother's name. "No," she said, her voice was rough. "The pact was incomplete." Mei turned toward her. Tsunade's fists clenched at her sides. "We made it to guard his heart from the enemy." Naruto disappeared into the shadow of the Hokage Tower. Tsunade swallowed the grief rising in her throat. "Now we have to guard it from what our fear just did to him." Far away, beyond Konoha's walls, beyond forests and roads and seas, an old unnamed village in the land of water lay under a sky the color of bruised silver. In the center of that village, where no memorial stone had ever been raised, Setsuna stood among houses that had forgotten laughter. Around her, pale threads drifted from the earth like roots pulled loose. A presence moved behind her, not a body, not a shadow, an absence shaped like comfort. The severance did not speak, it did not need to. Setsuna closed her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "he has seen the web." The air filled with 1,000 silent sighs. "He is afraid." The severed threads trembled. Setsuna's face tightened with sorrow. No, not for himself. The presence waited. Setsuna opened her eyes. "He is afraid for them." For the first time, the empty village seemed to breathe. Every thread bent eastward, toward Fire Country, toward Konoha, toward the heart at the center of the world. Setsuna lifted her hand and touched the place over her own chest where a heart still beat, though she had long ago forgotten why. "One thread remains," she whispered. The severance gathered around her like a mother's arms, and when his heart opens, we will finally end the pain. The Hokage Tower had known many kinds of silence. It had known the silence before war, when messengers waited outside closed doors with reports folded in shaking hands. It had known the silence after disaster, when the village below had been flattened, and survivors stood among ruins too exhausted to cry. It had known the silence of politics, thick with things unsaid. But the silence in the council chamber after Setsuna vanished was different. This silence had a pulse. Naruto stood at the far side of the room near the window, his back to everyone, one hand pressed against his chest as if he could physically hold his heart in place. Tsunade sat at the table, arms folded, face carved into stone. Mei stood beside the map they had finally spread openly, her expression controlled but tired. Yura sat in a chair near the wall with a blanket around her shoulders, still pale from revealing the threads at the memorial. Kakashi leaned against the far wall, one visible eye narrowed, his usual relaxed mask gone. Sakura stood behind Naruto, close enough to reach him, not close enough to touch. Shikamaru sat with one elbow on the table, fingers pressed against his forehead, already building and discarding plans faster than most people could speak. No one wanted to be the first to explain, so Naruto did it for them. "You found out people were hollowing," he said quietly. "You traced it to me. You decided the thing feeds on fear and grief, so you kept it quiet. You didn't tell me because you thought I'd run straight at it." Tsunade's jaw tightened. Naruto turned from the window. His eyes were not blazing. That would have been easier. Naruto angry was loud, honest, almost comforting in its predictability. This Naruto was calm that frightened Tsunade more. "Am I wrong?" he asked. Mei answered before Tsunade could. "No." Sakura looked down. Kakashi closed his eye for one brief moment. Naruto nodded once, like a man confirming a mission detail. "Okay," that single word hurt more than shouting would have. Tsunade stood. "Naruto!" "No." He looked at her and the room seemed to shrink around them. "Not yet." Tsunade stopped. He turned to Yura. "Can you see them now, the threads?" Yura hesitated, then nodded. "Some, not all, not unless I open my sight fully." "Mine," her hands tightened around the blanket. "Yes." "Are they still going to me?" Yura looked at Mei. Naruto's voice sharpened. "Don't look at her, I asked you." The young censor flinched, but to her credit, she answered. "Yes, many threads bend toward you, but not all because people depend on you. Some bend because you reached them first. Some because they reached back. Some because grief remembers who helped it breathe." Naruto absorbed that. Then he asked the question nobody wanted. "If I'm the problem, what happens if I cut them?" Sakura's head snapped up. Naruto, Tsunade's chair cracked under her hand. Mei went very still. Yura's face drained of color. Shikamaru whispered, "That's troublesome." Naruto did not look away from Yura. "What happens?" Yura's voice shook. "You would become hollow. Hollow like Daichai, like Haru." "Worse," she whispered. "They were cut by the severance. Their ends are still there, bleeding, but there. If you cut yourself on purpose, if you reject every thread from the inside, there may be nothing left to tie back." Naruto's hand moved over his chest again. "And the severance couldn't use me?" "Naruto," Sakura said, voice breaking. "Stop!" He finally looked at her. Her eyes were bright with fear. That fear hit him harder than Tsunade's anger. His face softened, but the thought did not leave him. "I'm just asking." "No," Sakura said. "You're planning." Naruto looked away. That was answer enough. Tsunade slammed both palms onto the table. The wood split. "You will not even think about doing that." Naruto's gaze returned to her. "You don't get to decide what I think, Granny." The old nickname should have softened the words. It did not. Tsunade stepped around the table. "If you sever your own heart, you won't save anyone. You'll just prove that thing right." "And if I don't?" Naruto asked. "If it gets me?" Setsuna said, "I'm the center of the web. If my heart is what it needs, then everyone connected to me is in danger. Everyone connected to you is alive because you refuse to give up on them," Tsunade snapped. "And now that same connection might destroy them." The room shook with the force of his voice. For a heartbeat, Naruto's chakra flickered gold around his shoulders. Not an attack, not a transformation, just emotion escaping through power. Yura gasped softly. Everyone looked at her. The golden flicker around Naruto had caused the threads to appear for one fragile second. They filled the room like sunlight through cracked glass, thousands upon thousands of lines running from his chest outward. One to Sakura, one to Kakashi, one to Tsunade, dozens beyond the walls, hundreds. More than anyone could count, the thread to Tsunade shone bright, thick, and wounded. Naruto saw it, so did Tsunade. For one terrible moment, student and teacher stared at the visible proof of something neither had ever named. Then the threads vanished. Tsunade's voice, when it returned, was quieter. "You are not a disease, Naruto." He looked at the place where the thread had been. "Then why does it feel like everyone gets hurt because they love me?" No one answered. "Because every person in that room had once feared the same thing. Sakura had feared loving Sasuke made her weak. Kakashi had feared everyone close to him died. Tsunade had spent years proving love was a bet no one should make twice. And Mei Terumi had rebuilt an entire village that taught children bonds were liabilities." Naruto laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "Yeah," he said, "that's what I thought." He turned and walked toward the door. Sakura moved after him. "Naruto, wait." He paused, but did not turn. "I need air," Tsunade said. "Don't leave the village." Naruto looked over his shoulder. Something in his expression made the order die before it reached him. "I'm not a child." Then he left. The door closed. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Kakashi looked at Tsunade and Mei. "You two started this pact to protect him." Tsunade's eyes hardened. "Yes." Kakashi's voice remained calm, which somehow made it worse. "Then understand something. Naruto can forgive danger. He can forgive pain. He can forgive enemies who tried to kill him." His visible eye moved toward the door Naruto had used. "But being treated like the lonely child nobody trusted with the truth. That wound is older than all of us." Tsunade looked away. Sakura wiped at her eyes, angry at herself for crying. Mei folded her hands in front of her. "Then we have already helped the enemy." No one contradicted her. Outside the tower, Konoha moved beneath late afternoon light, unaware that its heart had been named as a battlefield. Naruto did not go home. He went to Training Ground 3. Of course he did. Some places held memory so strongly that people returned to them when they did not know where else to stand. The posts were still there. The grass had been replaced more than once. The trees bore new scars over old ones. To anyone else, it was just a training field. To Naruto, it was Team 7 beginning, Kakashi's bell test. Sakura yelling, Sasuke smirking, hunger, rivalry, embarrassment, teamwork. A bond before any of them knew how much it would hurt. Naruto sat beneath one of the trees and stared at his hands. Kurama's voice came from within. Do not start thinking stupid thoughts. Naruto almost smiled. You're getting predictable. You are getting predictable. That is why I am speaking early. Naruto leaned back against the trunk. What if it works? It will not. You don't know that. I know what empty things smell like. Naruto closed his eyes. Inside, in the deep chamber where he and Kurama met, the fox opened both eyes. Naruto stood before the bars that were no longer really bars, because their bond had changed too much for old symbols to matter. Daichai didn't suffer after it happened, Naruto said. Haru didn't suffer. Kurama's lip curled. You call that living? Naruto did not answer. The fox's tails lashed. You humans fear pain so much you forget pain is proof something mattered. Cut that away and what remains? Meat that breathes, eyes that blink, a body waiting for orders. Naruto looked down. If the choice is me becoming that or everyone else. Kurama's roar shook the chamber. Do not dress cowardice as sacrifice. Naruto's eyes widened. Kurama lowered his head until one massive red eye filled Naruto's vision. You think I do not know that trick? Calling it noble when you are tired, calling it protection when you want silence. I lived inside your loneliness, brat. I know the shape of it. This thought is not strategy. It is pain looking for permission. Naruto's throat tightened. He turned away. Kurama's voice softened, though only a little. You taught me that bonds are not chains. Naruto closed his eyes. Then why do they feel so heavy? Kurama did not answer immediately. When he did, the growl was quieter. Because you keep trying to carry both ends. Naruto opened his eyes. The training field returned around him. The sun had begun to lower. He sat there until shadows stretched across the grass. Then a voice said, You picked the obvious place. Naruto looked up. Shikamaru stood nearby, hands in his pockets. Naruto sighed. Troublesome. Extremely. Nice talk. Shikamaru walked over and sat beside him without asking. For a while, neither spoke. That was one of the good things about Shikamaru. He did not fill silence just because it existed. Finally, Naruto said, You think I'm being stupid? Yes, Naruto huffed. But, Shikamaru added, I understand the math. Naruto looked at him. Shikamaru picked a blade of grass and rolled it between his fingers. One person cuts himself off. Enemy loses its ki. In a simple strategy game, that sounds efficient. Sakura would punch you for saying that, probably. That's why I waited until she wasn't here. Despite himself, Naruto almost smiled. Shikamaru's expression turned serious. But people aren't pieces. And you're not just a king on a board, Naruto. You're also the annoying idiot who convinced half the board not to kill each other. Naruto looked across the field. If my bonds are the weakness, they're also the reason we're having this conversation instead of planning another war. Naruto said nothing. Shikamaru leaned back on his hands. My dad used to say a good plan doesn't remove the thing you're trying to protect. Naruto's chest tightened. Shikamaru's voice stayed even, but grief moved quietly beneath it. If saving everyone requires deleting you, then the plan is bad. Naruto looked at him. I miss him too, Shikamaru said. The honesty was simple. No dramatic speech, no grand lesson. Just a thread placed gently in the open. Naruto swallowed. What did you never say to him? Shikamaru's eyes shifted toward the sky. A long silence passed. Then he said, that I was scared I'd never be as steady as he thought I was. The air changed. Naruto felt it, not chakra, something softer. For 1 second, a thin thread shimmered from Shikamaru's chest upward into the fading sky. It was frayed, but not broken. Shikamaru inhaled sharply. Did you feel that? Naruto nodded slowly. Yeah, neither moved. The thread vanished, but the pressure in the air eased. Shikamaru rubbed the back of his neck. So that's the battlefield. Naruto stared at where the thread had been, emotional truth. Troublesome battlefield, Shikamaru muttered. I prefer shadows. Naruto smiled faintly, then his expression fell again. Truth didn't save Daichai. Maybe because no one knew which truth to speak. That answer settled heavily between them. Naruto looked toward the village. Then we need to find out. While Naruto sat beneath old memories, Tsunade and Mei descended into the hospital archives. The lower levels beneath Konoha Hospital were cooler than the floors above. Stone walls held shelves of sealed files, old case records, war injuries, forbidden medical notes, autopsy scrolls, and disaster logs written by tired hands during years nobody wanted to repeat. Tsunade walked like she was entering a graveyard. Mei noticed. "You keep your dead in paper too," the Mizukage said softly. Tsunade did not slow. "Bodies rot, records accuse forever." They entered a private archive room. Shizyun had already left 3 stacks of files on the central table before being sent to coordinate the medical cover story upstairs. For the first time since the summit, Tsunade and Mei were alone. No censors, no students, no Hokage, just 2 women surrounded by old wounds. Mei placed a Kiri scroll beside the Konoha records. "I requested this through a secure channel," she said. "It arrived an hour ago." Tsunade glanced at the seal. "Purge archive?" Mei nodded. Her hand rested on the scroll but did not open it. Tsunade recognized the hesitation. "Not fear of information, fear of confirmation." "You don't have to perform guilt for me," Tsunade said. Mei's eyes lifted. Tsunade pulled out a chair and sat heavily. "I've got enough ghosts of my own. I know what inherited blood feels like." Mei sat across from her. For a moment the Mizukage mask slipped. "I was young when the worst of the bloody mist ended," Mei said. "Old enough to understand fear, too young to stop anything. When I became Mizukage, people wanted speeches about a new era, clean words, rebuilding, unity." Her mouth tightened. "But every street I repaired had once watched children walk to graduation exams where only one would return. Every clan house I reopened had rooms where families had hidden until Hunter Nin came. They called me the woman who ended the bloody mist." She looked down at the scroll. "But ending a thing is not the same as burying it properly." Tsunade's expression shifted, not soft, less guarded. "No," she said. "It isn't." Mei looked at her. "You understand." Tsunade almost said no. Instead, she leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "My little brother wanted to be Hokage." Mei remained silent. That was wise. Nowaki was loud, reckless, full of dreams bigger than his body. He wore our grandfather's necklace like it made him invincible. Tsunade's voice stayed steady, but her eyes had gone far away. "Then he died on his birthday, torn apart by an explosive trap. They brought back what they could." Mei's face lowered in quiet respect. Tsunade continued. "Dan wanted to change the village, protect people before they became names on memorial stones. He died with my hands inside his chest while I tried to hold him together." Her fingers curled against her palm. "I was the best medic of my generation, maybe any generation. It didn't matter. His blood kept coming. My chakra kept failing. His dream left his eyes before his body stopped breathing." The archive room seemed to hold its breath. "And after that?" Mei asked softly. Tsunade smiled without warmth. "After that, I decided love was a bad bet, so I gambled on everything else instead." Mei understood then, not fully. No one could fully understand another person's grief, but enough. "That is why Naruto frightens you," Mei said. Tsunade's eyes sharpened. Mei did not retreat. "He keeps betting his heart." Tsunade looked away. "He keeps winning," she said, "and you keep waiting for the table to take everything." Tsunade's silence was answer enough. Mei opened the purge scroll. Inside was a list of names. Most had been crossed out, not with ink, with official stamps. "Deceased, deceased, deceased, deceased." Then near the bottom, "Setsuna, status unconfirmed." Attached to the name was a smaller note, brittle with age. Mei read it aloud. "Subject belongs to the Ayatsuri line. Perception of emotional linkage confirmed. High risk to village conditioning practices. Removal authorized." Tsunade's face hardened. "Village conditioning practices?" she repeated. Mei's voice went cold. "Teaching children to murder bonds before bonds could make them hesitate." She turned the page. There were witness notes, fragmented, cruel in their clinical distance. A child found after a purge, silent among bodies. A girl who cried when strangers lied. A bloodline ability that detected attachments, loyalty, betrayal, grief. A recommendation that surviving children be eliminated before they could become contagions of hesitation. Tsunade's fist trembled. Mei kept reading, though every word seemed to cut her. Final operation incomplete due to battlefield disruption. One subject missing. presumed dead. A small sketch was tucked inside. The lines were crude, but the face was recognizable. Setsuna, younger, 6 years old, large gray eyes, no smile. Tsunade stared at the sketch. The enemy had a child's face. That made everything harder. Mei touched the edge of the page. I found her too late. "You didn't create the bloody mist." "No," Mei said, "but I inherited its locked doors. I chose which ones to open slowly because the village was fragile, because people needed unity, because truth would cause anger, panic, shame." Tsunade's eyes lifted. Mei looked at her. Both women understood at the same moment. The words came from Tsunade, rough and unwilling. "We are doing it again." Mei closed the scroll. Neither moved. The truth sat between them like a third person. They had hidden the hollowings to prevent panic. They had hidden the threads to protect Naruto. They had hidden Setsuna's name to buy time. Every reason had been practical. Every reason had been loving. Every reason had built another wall, and the enemy was called the severance. Mei spoke first. I told myself secrecy was different from severing. Tsunade's voice was low. "It isn't always. We cut Naruto away from the truth and called it protection." Tsunade looked at her hands. Hands that could heal organs, bones, skin, nerves. Hands that had failed Dan. Hands that had grabbed Naruto's wrist that morning like she could keep fate from touching him by force. "I spent years believing if I didn't love anything too openly, losing it wouldn't kill me," she said. Mei's face softened. "Did it work?" Tsunade laughed quietly. "No, it just made me harder to reach." The archive room felt suddenly too small. Mei stood and walked to the shelves, not looking for anything, just needing movement. "In Kiri, people joke about my marriage comments," she said. "The desperate Mizukage who wants a husband, they think it is vanity, loneliness made cute." Tsunade looked up. Mei's back was to her. "They do not know what it means to rebuild a village where love was trained out of children. To stand in meetings with elders who survived by cutting away tenderness, then ask them to trust. To smile at young shinobi so they believe the future is warm, then return to rooms where no one is waiting." Her voice remained elegant. That made the loneliness inside it sharper. "I kept telling myself a cage does not need to be carried. A cage carries." Tsunade stood slowly. Mei turned for once. Neither woman wore her full armor. Tsunade said, "That's a stupid rule." Mei's mouth curved faintly. "I suspected you might say something gentler." "I'm not gentle." "No," Mei said, "but you are not as closed as you pretend." Tsunade snorted. Then the archive lantern flickered. Both women turned. A thin blue thread slid out from the purge scroll. It hovered in the air between them. Mei's breath caught. Tsunade reached for chakra by instinct, then stopped. No jutsu, not this battlefield. The thread uncurled. A memory opened, not one they owned. Setsuna stood in a village without a name. She was older than the sketch now, perhaps 12. Snow fell in wet clumps. Houses stood empty. Doors hung open. No smoke rose from chimneys. The world looked abandoned except for the girl kneeling beside a shallow grave. She placed stones carefully around it. One stone for a mother, one for a father, one for a brother, one for a neighbor who had given her dried fish, one for a boy whose name she remembered only because he had once shared a wooden toy. No memorial had been built for them, so the child built one herself. The memory shifted. Setsuna older, 15 maybe, still alone, she had learned to hunt, to hide, to read old documents left behind by people who thought erased names stayed erased. Sometimes she stood on cliffs overlooking the sea and felt threads far away. Families laughing, comrades arguing, lovers promising, children reaching for parents. Every thread hurt, not because she hated them, because each one reminded her of the place in herself where threads had once been. Then war came, not directly to her nameless village at first. War came as tremors, smoke on the horizon, refugees passing through old roads. Setsuna hid from shinobi patrols, but sometimes she left food where frightened children would find it. One day, she found a wounded Kiri shinobi near the shore. He was barely older than she was. His name was Ren. The memory warmed. Ren smiled too much for a boy bleeding through bandages. He had deserted, though he never used that word. He said he was tired of villages telling children where to place their loyalty and where to bury their fear. Setsuna did not trust him. Then he stayed. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. He repaired a roof. She taught him where the clean water ran. He spoke of a new Mizukage trying to change Kiri. Setsuna listened from a distance and pretended she was not listening. He was the first living person who knew her name and did not turn it into a record. The thread between them formed slowly, fragile. Disbelieving, real, the memory shifted again. War's final days, the sky strange with distant power. Ren received word that shinobi forces were gathering. He wanted to help evacuate civilians caught between battle lines. Setsuna begged him not to go, not loudly. She had never learned how to beg loudly. She simply held his sleeve and said, "If you leave, the thread will hurt." Ren placed his forehead against hers. "Then I'll come back and make it stop hurting." He smiled. He left. He did not come back. The memory darkened. Setsuna found him 3 days later among bodies no one had counted, no glorious death, no final speech. No enemy to blame, just a boy who had tried to help and been crushed beneath a war too large to notice him. Setsuna knelt beside him until night fell, then morning, then another night. She waited for grief to become crying. It became something else. Every thread she could feel across the world screamed. The war ended. People cheered. Peace was declared. And Setsuna sat beside the last person she loved, listening to the world celebrate while her heart tore open in silence. That was when something answered, not a demon, not a god, a mercy made from every ungrieved goodbye. The severance found her because she was the only one still listening to all the cut threads. It did not command, it comforted. No more pain, it promised without words. No more bonds, no more losing. Setsuna reached back, the memory snapped shut. The thread fell onto the table like dead string. Mei stood frozen. Tsunade's eyes burned, neither spoke for a long time. Finally Mei whispered, "She was not born the severance." "No," Tsunade said. "She was found by it." Mei pressed a hand over her mouth for one brief, unguarded moment. "I opened the archives too late." Tsunade looked at the purge scroll, then at the thread. "Maybe, but she's still alive." Mei's eyes lifted. "She is." Tsunade's voice hardened. "Then stop burying her." By nightfall, the hospital had 3 more hollowing cases, none severe enough to empty completely. Not yet. A grandmother who forgot why she kept her son's forehead protector beneath her pillow. A courier who stared at an old mission partner's name and said it seemed familiar. A young academy teacher who began crying in the middle of class but could not explain who she missed. Yura confirmed each one, cut threads, clean, precise. Merciful, the word began to make Tsunade sick. Naruto visited none of them. That worried everyone. It worried Tsunade most. She found him at the old swing near the academy. For a moment, she did not approach. He sat with his elbows on his knees, looking at the empty playground. The swing moved slightly in the night breeze beside him. Of all the places in Konoha, he had chosen this one. The place where he had once watched other children leave with parents who called their names. Tsunade almost turned back. Then Naruto spoke. "You're really bad at sneaking, Granny." She sighed and walked closer. "I wasn't sneaking." "Good, because you're bad at it." She sat beside him on the wooden frame, careful not to break it. The village lights glowed around them. For a while they said nothing. Then Naruto asked, "Did you know I used to hate this swing?" Tsunade looked at it. "I guessed. I sat here because nobody told me to leave. That was the best thing about it." He smiled faintly, but it hurt to see. "Nobody wanted me close, but nobody cared enough to move me either." Tsunade closed her eyes. "Naruto, back then, adults whispered a lot. They thought I didn't hear, or maybe they didn't care if I did. Demon, monster. Don't go near him, don't tell him why." His hands tightened. "So when you all started whispering again, I knew." Tsunade had no defense, no excuse good enough. "I'm sorry," she said. Naruto looked at her. The simplicity of it surprised him. Tsunade Senju did not apologize easily. She forced herself to continue. "I thought I was protecting you, that's true, but it isn't the whole truth." Naruto waited. Tsunade looked toward the Hokage monument. "I was protecting myself too." His expression shifted. She swallowed. "I've lost people I loved because I could not save them." Nawaki, Dan, Jiraiya, more patience than I can count. For years I told myself I was done reaching, done betting my heart on anything that could die. Her voice roughened. Then you came along, loud, stubborn, impossible. You wore my necklace and survived what killed everyone else who carried my hopes. Naruto's eyes softened. Tsunade did not look at him. When Yura's map showed every thread bending toward you, I didn't see a strategy problem first. I saw another person I loved standing in the path of something I couldn't punch, couldn't heal, and couldn't gamble against. The night was very quiet. So I did what I always do when I'm afraid, Tsunade said. I tried to grab control. Naruto looked down. You hurt me. I know. You made me feel like that kid again. Tsunade's breath caught. There it was, the truth she had earned. I know, she whispered. Naruto's eyes were bright, but he did not cry. That's the part I can't just shrug off. I'm not asking you to. Good. They sat beneath the academy lights. Two people bound by a thread neither had known how to name until it almost became a weapon. Tsunade reached into her sleeve. Naruto tensed slightly. She noticed and hated herself for giving him reason, but she only pulled out a small folded paper. Setsuna's origin, she said. What we know, what Mei showed me, no more hiding. Naruto stared at the paper, then took it. He unfolded it slowly and read. Tsunade watched his face change, anger first, then sorrow, then that dangerous compassion that had saved enemies and terrified allies. When he finished, Naruto closed his eyes. She was alone. Yes, and the Severance found her there. Yes, Naruto stood. Tsunade stood too. Naruto! He looked toward the village gate. She's at that old Kiri village, right? Tsunade cursed herself. Naruto, listen to me. I am listening. No. You're doing the thing we knew you'd do. He turned, walking toward someone in pain, walking toward a threat that wants your heart. Naruto pressed the folded paper against his chest. Maybe those are the same place. Tsunade grabbed his sleeve, this time not his wrist, not a restraint, a plea. Naruto, if you go to her now, you may give the Severance exactly what it wants. He looked at her hand, then at her face. I know. That isn't enough to stop you. No, Tsunade's eyes burned. You idiot. His smile was small and sad. Yeah, she tightened her grip. We are not ready. She has been alone since she was 6. That does not make her safe. I didn't say safe. Naruto looked toward the dark road beyond Konoha. I said alone. Tsunade felt the argument collapsing before she could build it, because Naruto was wrong often, but not about loneliness. Never about loneliness. He gently removed her hand from his sleeve. I won't go alone, he said. Tsunade blinked. Naruto looked back toward the tower, where lights still burned in the Hokage's office. I'm done with everyone deciding alone. You, Mei, Kakashi, that's how this thing wins, right? It cuts people apart, makes them think carrying pain alone is mercy. His voice steadied. So no, I'm not going to sever my heart. I'm not going to run off without telling anyone, and I'm not going to sit here while Setsuna sinks deeper because we're scared of what she became. Tsunade stared at him. For the first time since the summit, the knot in her chest loosened. Not because the danger was smaller, because Naruto had named the answer before any of them did, not secrecy, not sacrifice. Together, he started walking toward the tower. Tsunade followed. At the corner of the street, Mei waited beneath a lamp as if she had known where they would end up. Her face was composed, but her eyes moved quickly over both of them. Naruto stopped in front of her. Mei bowed her head slightly. Naruto Uzumaki, I owe you an apology. Yeah, he said. Mei accepted that without flinching. I am sorry. He studied her. Then he handed her the folded report. She was your village wound first. Mei's fingers closed around the paper. Naruto's voice softened. But wounds don't heal because people argue over who owns them. Mei looked at him for a long moment. Then quietly she said, No, they do not. Tsunade stepped beside them. The three stood under the lamp, their shadows crossing on the street. Above them, unseen by most of Konoha, 3 threads shimmered faintly, gold, green, red, not walls, not chains, anchors. Far across the sea, in the nameless village, Setsuna lifted her head. The Severance stirred around her. She felt it. The sun was moving, not alone. That made the presence around her tighten with something almost like concern. Setsuna placed a hand over her heart and listened to the distant threads. Naruto's burned brightest. But beside it, two others had begun to hold, the healer who feared losing again, the builder who carried a graveyard. The hearts that had sworn to guard the sun were no longer trying to hide him from the dark. They were walking with him into it. Setsuna closed her eyes. For the first time in years, fear touched her own thread, not fear of pain, fear of hope. Behind her, the severance whispered without words, "Hope is only grief before it ripens." Setsuna opened her eyes. "Then we will spare them that too," she said. The empty village answered with silence. And every severed thread beneath its soil began to rise. The first town went silent before sunrise. It was called Hashigawa, a small settlement east of Fire Country's border roads, close enough to Konoha to receive shinobi protection, far enough that people still settled disputes by gathering in the tea house and yelling until someone's grandmother decided everyone was being foolish. It was not a famous place. No great clan had been born there. No legendary battle had carved its name into history. No monument stood at its center except a weather-worn shrine for travelers and a small stone wall where villagers had written the names of those lost in the Fourth War. That was why the first messenger did not panic, at least not at first. He arrived at Konoha's eastern gate just after dawn, horse-lathered, face gray from riding through the night. The Chunin on gate duty recognized him as a courier from the border route and offered water before asking questions. The courier tried to speak. No sound came, his mouth moved, his hands trembled. His eyes filled with frantic terror, but his voice had been cut away so completely that even a scream could not escape. The Chunin reached for him. The courier flinched back, shaking his head so hard he nearly fell. Then he pulled a folded paper from inside his jacket and shoved it into the guard's hands. The message had been written in broken strokes, as if the writer had been fighting his own fingers. Hashigawa is awake, but no one is there. By the time the message reached the Hokage's office, Kakashi had already been awake for hours. So had Naruto, so had Tsunade and Mei. None of them said, "This is it." They did not need to. The room moved like a battlefield command post within seconds. Kakashi stood at the map table, one hand braced against the edge. Shikamaru began assigning routes before anyone formally asked. Sakura gathered medical teams. Sai prepared messenger birds. Shizune sent coded warnings to nearby outposts with instructions carefully stripped of anything that might create panic. No mention of heart sickness. No mention of the severance. No mention of Naruto. Only, suspected resonance event, maintain calm, avoid grief triggers, await specialized response. Naruto hated every controlled word. He understood why they were necessary. That did not make him hate them less. Tsunade noticed. "You're coming," she said before he could argue. Naruto blinked. After days of being blocked, lied to, redirected, and protected, the permission struck him almost harder than refusal. "I am." Tsunade tied her hair back with sharp, practiced movements. "Don't look so surprised. You said no one decides alone anymore." Mei, already fastening a kiri cloak over her travel clothes, looked at him. "That includes you?" Naruto glanced between them. For one moment he looked younger, then he nodded. "Right." Kakashi's eye moved to him. "Naruto, you are not the first response. You are not bait. You are not the solution we throw at the problem because we are afraid." Naruto's mouth opened. Kakashi raised one finger. "And before you say anything inspirational and reckless, understand that I know all your usual expressions." Shikamaru muttered, "Everyone does." Naruto scowled at him. Sakura stepped closer and placed a small pouch into Naruto's hand. He looked down. Inside were soldier pills, sealing tags, and a folded strip of paper marked with Sakura's handwriting. "What's this?" "Emergency grounding instructions," Sakura said. Naruto frowned. "Grounding. If you feel the threads pulling too hard, you read that. Out loud if you have to." He unfolded the paper. The first line read, "Your name is Naruto Uzumaki. You are not the whole world. You are one person loved by many, and love is not a mission order." Naruto stared at it. His throat tightened. Sakura crossed her arms. "Don't make that face." "What face?" "The face where you pretend you're fine so everyone else can be fine." He tried to smile, failed. "Thanks, Sakura-chan." She looked away. "Just come back annoying. I'm always annoying." "That's why I said come back." Tsunade saw the thread between them shimmer faintly in the corner of her vision. She was not a censor. Not like Yura. But since the storage room, since the pact, since the map, some part of her had begun to feel the pressure of bonds when they moved near Naruto. Maybe everyone could feel threads a little. Maybe they had always felt them and called it instinct. The deployment left Konoha in disciplined silence. That was Kakashi's first victory. No crowd gathered at the gate. No frightened civilians asking questions. No shouting. No rumors fed by official panic. Just a small team moving fast through morning mist. Naruto, Tsunade, Mei, Sakura, Shikamaru, Sai, Yura, and a support group of mixed Konoha and Kiri shinobi trained to follow orders without needing explanations. They reached Hashikawa before noon. The town looked normal from the hill. That was the most terrible thing. Smoke rose from chimneys. Laundry hung between houses. Market stalls stood open. A cart sat halfway down the main road with baskets of radishes still stacked neatly inside. Chickens wandered near a fence. Prayer flags moved in the breeze. No fire, no bodies, no destruction. Naruto had seen villages after attacks. He had seen craters, broken walls, blood on roads, burned homes, people running. This was worse. Hashikawa looked like a town holding its breath. Shikamaru crouched at the ridge, eyes narrowed. No movement patterns. Sakura scanned the streets. "I see people." "So do I," Sai said, "but they are not behaving." A woman stood in front of a well, bucket in hand, staring at the rope as if she had forgotten why water mattered. Two children sat beside a doorway, not crying, not playing, just looking at the dust. An old man swept the same patch of street again and again, the broom moving long after purpose had left him. Near the shrine, a dog nudged its owner's hand and whined. The man did not look down. Naruto's fists clenched. Yura made a strangled sound. Mei turned to her. "What do you see?" The young censor's face had gone white. "No web," she whispered. Tsunade stepped closer. "Explain." Yura pressed both hands over her heart. In a living town, threads cross everywhere, parents to children, friends to neighbors, shopkeepers to regular customers, old grudges, small kindnesses, promises. Even irritation has a thread if it has history. Her eyes filled with horror. Here, everything is cut. The words passed through the team like cold wind. Naruto took one step forward. Tsunade caught his sleeve. He stopped, not because she had forced him, because she had asked without speaking. Mei looked toward the shrine. "Is Setsuna here?" Yura shook her head, then hesitated. "No, not fully, but the severance is." The air changed when she said the name. Every shinobi felt it. Not killing intent. Killing intent was easy. Killing intent pointed. It pressed against the skin. It belonged to someone. This was absence, a lack so complete it became presence. Sai's ink birds trembled on his scroll. Sakura swallowed. Shikamaru's shadow twitched at his feet, responding to his tension. Naruto closed his eyes and reached inward. Kurama was already awake. The fox's growl filled the chamber. "Do not let it teach you silence." Naruto opened his eyes. "I won't." They entered Hashikawa in formation. The support shinobi spread outward to secure roads and guide any responsive civilians toward the square. Sakura and Tsunade moved from person to person, checking bodies they already knew would show no ordinary wound. Mei kept Yura close, her own senses sharpened for any shift in the air. Shikamaru watched the spaces between things. Naruto walked through the town and tried not to break. A child looked at him without recognition, not fear, not awe, nothing. Naruto had spent years wanting people to look at him without hatred. He had never imagined that being looked at with nothing would hurt worse. At the center of town stood the small memorial wall. There were perhaps 30 names carved there, some old, some fresh from the war. Below the wall, flowers had been placed in jars. Several were wilted. One had fallen and spilled water across the stones. A man knelt before the wall. Unlike the others, he was shaking. Sakura moved toward him, but Yura caught her wrist. "Wait." The man's hands were pressed to his ears. "I can't hear her," he whispered. Everyone froze. Tsunade crouched slowly in front of him. "You can speak." The man looked up. His eyes were red. "I can't hear her," he repeated. Tsunade's voice softened with practiced care. "Who?" "My wife." His breath hitched. "I came to bring flowers. I always hear her when I come here, not like a ghost." "Not really. Just I remember the way she would complain that I bought cheap flowers. I remember her laughing at me. I remember the sound." He looked at the wall. "Now I know her name. I know we were married. I know she died in the war, but when I reach for her, there's nothing." Naruto's chest tightened. Yura whispered, "His thread is not fully cut." Mei's head turned sharply. "Can he be saved?" "I don't know." The man gripped Tsunade's sleeve. "Please," he said. "I don't want to forget that it hurt." That sentence struck Naruto like a physical blow. The man was not begging for peace. He was begging for grief. Because grief meant love had existed, Tsunade placed a hand over his. "What's your name?" "Masato." "Your wife?" "Aki." The air trembled. At the sound of the name, something moved behind the memorial wall. A pale slit opened in the world. Not a portal. A cut through it. Naruto felt the severance breathe. The support shinobi reacted instantly. "Enemy contact. Formation. Protect the civilians." Chakra surged. Too fast. Too afraid. Yura screamed, "No, calm down," but training had already taken over. Akano Hajanin threw a wind blade at the pale cut. Akiri shinobi released a water spear. Sai's ink lions leapt. Sakura slammed her fist into the ground to create a barrier of shattered stone between the villagers and the widening rift. Every technique passed through the pale absence as if thrown into fog. Then the rift grew. Not because the jutsu fed it, because the fear behind the jutsu did. The air filled with whispers, not words, almost words, the sound of people about to cry. A support shinobi staggered. "My brother." Another dropped his kunai. "I saw my mother." Tsunade shouted, "Stand down, too late." A young Kiri hunter-nin saw something in the rift and made a wounded sound. The severance reached through his grief. A thread above his chest appeared, bright and trembling. Then it split. The shinobi's expression went blank. Mei caught him before he fell. Yura sobbed. "Fear opens the cut." Shikamaru's voice cracked like a whip. "Everyone lower weapons. Eyes down, breathe. This is not a chakra fight." Some obeyed, some tried. One panicked genin formed hand signs with shaking fingers. Naruto moved and caught his hands. "Look at me," Naruto said. The genin's eyes were wild. "I saw them. I saw my team. They were calling. I know. You don't know." Naruto gripped his shoulders. "I know what it's like to hear the dead in your chest." The genin froze. Naruto's voice lowered. "But that thing isn't them. It's the pain around them. Don't feed it your fear." The boy shook. Naruto did not let go. "Breathe with me." One breath, then another. The thread above the genin's chest stopped fraying. Yura saw it and gasped. It worked. Not fully, not a save, but resistance. The severance disliked it. The rift widened again, spreading across the memorial wall like frost. A shape emerged, not Setsuna, not human. A figure made of empty space, its edges outlined by drifting threads. It had no face, only the suggestion of one where sorrow might have learned to look back. Around it, voices whispered, "Rest, let go, no more pain." The villagers nearest the square began moving toward it, slowly, calmly, like sleepwalkers answering a lullaby. Sakura ran to block them. "Stop, please stop!" One old woman looked at her with mild confusion. "Move aside, dear." Sakura's eyes filled with helpless anger. "I can't." The old woman smiled faintly. "There's no need to fuss." Behind Sakura, a little boy stood and began walking toward the rift. Naruto stepped forward. The figure turned toward him. The entire town's silence shifted. It recognized him. Every cut thread in Hashigawa lifted at once and bent in Naruto's direction. He staggered. Pain slammed into him, not his pain, all of theirs. A mother forgetting the weight of her baby, a friend forgetting a promise, a brother forgetting why a grave mattered. A child forgetting the warmth of a hand. The severance did not attack his body. It offered him the town's emptiness like a gift. "See," it seemed to say, "no screaming, no longing, no loss." Naruto's knees nearly buckled. Then two hands steadied him, Tsunade on his left, Mei on his right, not in front. Beside, their threads flared, gold answered green and red. Yura stared through tears. They're anchoring him. Tsunade's voice was rough. Naruto, your name, he swallowed. Sakura's paper, Mei said. Naruto's shaking hand pulled the folded note from his pouch. The rift pulsed. He forced himself to read. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. His voice trembled, then steadied. I am not the whole world. I am one person loved by many, and love is not a mission order. The severance recoiled, only slightly, but everyone saw it. Shikamaru's eyes sharpened. Words matter. Yura nodded quickly. Truth matters. Masato, still kneeling near the memorial, began to sob. I don't remember her laugh, he said. I don't remember it. The rift turned toward him, his thread frayed. Tsunade moved instinctively to heal, stopped herself. No chakra, not this battlefield. She dropped to one knee in front of him. Masato, look at me, he shook his head. I'm losing her. You said you brought cheap flowers, his breathing hitched. What did she say? I don't. Yes, you do. Tsunade gripped his hands. Not the sound, the truth. Why did she complain? Masato sobbed harder. Because she liked expensive things. Is that true? He blinked. The thread flickered. No, he whispered. Tsunade leaned closer. Then what is true? The severance stretched toward them. Mei stepped between it and Tsunade, not attacking, simply standing with a calm so disciplined it became resistance. Masato looked at the flowers. She complained because I always apologized, he whispered. Every time. I'd bring whatever I could afford and start saying sorry before she even saw them. His thread steadied. Tsunade's voice softened. Why? Because I thought she deserved better. The rift hissed without sound. Masato's tears fell onto the dust. She hated that, he said. She hated when I made love sound like a debt. Naruto looked at him. Something in the air warmed by a single degree. Tsunade said, What did you never tell her? Masato closed his eyes. The severance lunged, not at his body, at the thread. Naruto moved to intervene, but Mei caught his arm. No. Let him speak. Masato pressed both hands to his chest as if holding the cut ends together. I never told her I was angry, he whispered. The thread burned brighter. Everyone went still. Masato's voice broke open. I was angry she left me. I know she died saving people. I know it wasn't her fault. I know it's selfish, but I was angry. Every time I brought flowers, I said sorry because if I kept apologizing, I wouldn't have to admit I was angry at a dead woman for not coming home. The rift shuddered. The faceless figure bent toward him. Masato lifted his head to the memorial wall. Aki, he said, voice shaking, I loved you, I still love you, and I was angry. And I'm sorry I made my grief polite because I was ashamed of it. The thread snapped tight, not broken tight. A sound filled the square. A woman's laugh, soft, exasperated, bright. Masato gasped. His face collapsed. There, he whispered. There you are. The thread reconnected. Light rushed from his chest to the name on the wall and back again, not healing the loss, not erasing the grief, but letting it move. The severance recoiled as if struck, not by chakra, by truth. Across the square, several hollowed villagers blinked. The old woman near Sakura frowned as if waking from a long nap. Why am I outside? She murmured. Sakura stared. Yura cried out. Some threads are reconnecting. Hope surged through the shinobi too quickly. The rift expanded again. Shikamaru cursed. Don't celebrate, stay calm. But hope was not the same as peace. Hope could become fear of losing hope, and the severance fed on that too. The faceless figure stretched upward, taller than the shrine, its empty outline filling with the pale light of cut threads. Every villager who remained hollow turned toward it. Then Setsuna appeared at its center, not fully physical, suspended in the absence like a girl standing behind thin ice. Her eyes were fixed on Masato. You returned the pain to him, she said. Naruto stepped forward. No, he returned the love. Setsuna looked at him. The severance around her stirred. You think there is a difference because you have survived loving. Others do not. Masato clutched the memorial stone, weeping and laughing at the same time. Naruto pointed to him. He's hurting. Yes, but he's here. Setsuna's expression tightened. He will lose her again every morning, and remember her every morning. That is cruelty. That is life. The words hung between them. For the first time, Setsuna looked angry, not furious, not hateful, wounded. You say that because people came back for you? Naruto went still. Setsuna's eyes filled with tears. Do not speak to me of life, son heart. You were hated, yes, abandoned, yes, but someone reached you, a teacher, a team, a village eventually, even a beast in a cage became your family. Kurama growled inside him. Setsuna lifted one hand, and the rift showed flashes of the nameless village, empty houses, small graves, a girl growing older alone. No one came for me, Mei stepped forward. I should have. Setsuna's gaze snapped to her. The square chilled. Mei did not look away. I opened records. I searched names. I rebuilt policies. I told myself that was atonement. Her voice remained steady, though her hands trembled. But I did not come soon enough. I did not find you. I did not raise a memorial for your village. I let Kiri's shame remain organized in scrolls instead of spoken aloud. Setsuna's face twisted. Do not offer guilt as connection. I am not, Mei said. I am offering truth. A red-green thread shimmered from Mei's chest toward the rift, not to bind Setsuna, to acknowledge her. The severance lashed at it. Mei gasped, but held her ground. Tsunade grabbed her shoulder, anchoring her. The thread steadied. Yura whispered, Lady Mei. Setsuna stared at the thread as if it were a weapon she did not understand. You cannot fix what was done, Setsuna said. No, Mei answered. I cannot. Then why speak? Because silence helped make you? The words struck the square. Even the severance seemed to pause. Naruto looked at Mei, and something like pride moved through his pain. Tsunade's grip on Mei's shoulder tightened once. Then the faceless figure behind Setsuna unfolded wider. Its mercy had limits. Truth could weaken it. So it changed the battlefield. The entire town's cut threads rose from the ground. Hundreds of pale strands whipped into the air, circling the square. Each one carried a memory without feeling, a name without warmth, a promise without ache. Yura screamed and fell to her knees. Sakura rushed to her side. What is happening? It's taking the whole town deeper. The hollowed villagers began to fade, not physically, resonantly. Their presence dimmed. Their faces became calm. Too calm, Tsunade shouted, How do we stop it? Yura shook her head desperately. One at a time. Each thread needs truth. We can't do a whole town at once. Shikamaru's mind raced. Too many victims, too few speakers, too much fear, chakra useless, force useless. The severance had learned from Masato it would not fight them person by person anymore. It would drown the town in silence all at once. Naruto stepped into the center of the square. Naruto, Tsunade warned. He ignored her, but not out of defiance, out of focus. He closed his eyes. Sage mode rose first. Orange pigmentation formed around his eyes. Natural energy entered him, connecting him to the life around the town, trees, birds, roots, breath, the stubborn pulse of the world beneath human sorrow. Then Kurama's chakra warmed beneath it, not a cloak for battle. A lantern. Yura stared. He's bridging. Mei looked sharply at her. Sage energy touches all life, Yura whispered. It's not resonance, but it can stand near it. Naruto opened his eyes. They were steady. He did not attack the severance. He spoke to Hashigawa. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, he said, voice carrying across the square. I don't know all of you. I don't know every person you lost. I can't say the right truth for every thread. The severance bent toward him, hungry not for chakra, for the heart beneath it. Naruto felt the pull. Tsunade and Mei moved to either side of him again. This time he did not lean away. But I know this. Naruto continued. If the pain is still there, then the love mattered. If the name hurts, then the person wasn't nothing. If you're angry, say it. If you're lonely, say it. If you forgot how to cry, let someone stand beside you until you remember. Around the square, the shinobi listened. So did the villagers. Naruto's voice roughened. Don't make your grief polite just because the world wants to move on. Masato sobbed harder, clutching Iki's name. Sakura looked down, tears running freely now. Shikamaru closed his eyes and thought of his father. Kakashi, far away in Konoha receiving reports, would never know why his chest suddenly tightened around old names. Naruto placed one hand over his heart. And don't let anything tell you emptiness is mercy. The severance surged. The pale threads snapped toward him. Tsunade shouted his name. Naruto did not move. For 1 second, the entire town's hollow grief touched his heart. He saw too much. Aki laughing, a boy leaving for war. A mother burning letters because reading them hurt, a brother pretending bravery. A child asleep under a table while adults discussed which names to carve into stone. Hashigawa's grief poured into him like cold water. His knees buckled. Tsunade caught him from the left, Mei caught him from the right. Their threads flared bright enough that even Sakura saw them. Gold held by green, gold held by red, not shielded, held. Naruto gasped. "I'm here," Tsunade said, voice fierce. "You are not carrying this alone." Mei's voice followed, calm and unbreakable. "We stand with you." Those words mattered, not because they were beautiful, because they were true. The severance recoiled again. The town's threads trembled, some reconnected, not all, not even most. But enough. A woman collapsed, crying her son's name. 2 children began screaming for their mother. The old man with the broom dropped it and wailed into his hands. The square filled with grief. Raw, messy, loud, alive. The severance shrank back toward the memorial wall, its faceless outline twisting. Setsuna remained at its center, staring at the town in horror. "They are suffering," she whispered. Naruto lifted his head, breathing hard. "They're feeling. They will break." "No." His voice shook, but held. "They'll hold each other." As if answering him, Sakura pulled the 2 crying children into her arms. Shikamaru guided a shaking shinobi to sit beside a grieving villager. Sai, awkward but sincere, offered his ink birds to a child who had begun to remember fear. Mei's Kiri shinobi helped Konoha medics support the waking hollowed. Masato placed one hand on the shoulder of the old woman beside him, though he was still crying himself. The web did not repair cleanly. It knotted, it tangled, it hurt, but it lived. Setsuna looked at Mei, then Tsunade. Then Naruto. For one heartbeat, the girl beneath the severance seemed lost. Mei stepped forward. "Setsuna, come back with us." The severance tightened around her. Setsuna's eyes filled with panic. "No," Naruto took one step toward her. "You don't have to be alone anymore." Her face twisted in pain. Hope touched her, and the severance struck. The rift collapsed inward, pulling Setsuna back. A shockwave of silence burst across the square. Every sound vanished for one breath. When it returned, Setsuna was gone. The faceless figure was gone. The memorial wall remained cracked by pale frost. Hashigawa was not saved, not fully. Dozens still sat hollow-eyed. Many threads remained cut. Some villagers remembered names but not feelings. Others remembered feelings so violently they could barely stand. The town had not been restored by one speech, one miracle, or one hero. But it had not been consumed. That mattered. Tsunade helped Naruto sit on the shrine steps. Sakura reached him a moment later, scanning him despite knowing the wound would not show. His chakra was stable. His pulse was too fast. His eyes looked older. "How bad?" Tsunade asked quietly. Naruto tried to smile. "Which answer gets me less yelling?" "None," he sighed. "It hurt," Mei crouched in front of him. "What did you feel?" Naruto looked across the square at the grieving town. "All of them," he said. "Just for a second, but it was like everyone's goodbye got stuck in my chest." Yura, still shaking, whispered, "That was only one town." The words landed heavily. One town had nearly dropped Naruto to his knees. The severance carried war, not one village, not one nation. War. Tsunade saw the thought move through Naruto's face. So did Mei. So did Sakura. Naruto looked down at his hands. "If it reaches me with all of it," Tsunade's voice hardened. "It won't." He did not argue. That frightened her. He just stared at his palms, remembering Daichai, Haru, Hashigawa, and the way emptiness had offered itself like relief. Shikamaru approached, expression grim. "We learned something." Tsunade looked up. "Truth reconnects threads." "One at a time," Shikamaru said. "Slowly, personally, not useful against mass events unless we can prevent panic and organize support." Mei stood. The severance adapted quickly. "It will not let us repeat this easily." Sakura's voice was quiet. "And Naruto can act as a bridge." Everyone looked at him. Naruto did not look up. Tsunade's stomach sank. "A partial bridge," Yura said quickly. "Not a solution. If too many threads passed through him, he could." She stopped. No one needed her to finish. Naruto stood. A little unsteady, Tsunade reached for him, then stopped herself. He noticed. Something gentle moved across his face. He appreciated it. That made the next words hurt more. "If my heart is the bridge," Naruto said, "then maybe we need to make sure the Severance can never use it." Sakura went still. "Naruto," he finally looked at them. "I'm not saying I'll do it." Tsunade's eyes narrowed. "Do what?" Naruto held her gaze. The silence around the question was answer enough. Self-severance, becoming hollow. Cutting every thread from the inside so the Severance could never take the heart at the center of the world. Mei's face hardened. "No, I said I'm not doing it." "Yet," Tsunade said. Naruto looked away. The single movement confirmed everything. Sakura grabbed his arm. "Don't." He did not pull away. But he did not promise. Around them, Hashigawa wept itself slowly back into life. The sound should have been hopeful. Instead, it felt like a warning. Far across the sea, in the nameless village, Setsuna stood beneath a sky without stars. The Severance surrounded her more tightly than before. It had tasted resistance. It had tasted Naruto's heart, and now it understood the shape of its final obstacle. Setsuna touched her own chest, where hope had briefly hurt more sharply than despair. "He can carry them," she whispered. The Severance answered without words, "Not forever." Setsuna closed her eyes. In the dark behind her lids, she saw Naruto standing in Hashigawa's square, held upright by two women who refused to let him suffer alone. For the first time, Setsuna hated them a little, not because they were cruel, because they had arrived. Because they were late but not absent, because the sun had guards. The Severance pressed its mercy against her grief. Cut the heart, it promised, end the web, no more pain. Setsuna opened her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. Beneath the nameless village, every buried thread rose like pale roots toward the surface. And in Hashigawa, Naruto Uzumaki stood among the living and the hollow, surrounded by love so strong it could save the world, and so heavy it might make him choose to disappear. Hashigawa kept crying long after the Severance vanished. That was how everyone knew the town was still alive, not saved, not healed, not restored. Alive, the sound of grief filled the streets in uneven waves. Some people wept loudly, as if the sorrow had been trapped behind their ribs and finally found a door. Some sat in silence, shaking so hard their teeth clicked. Some clung to strangers because their families still looked at them with hollow eyes. Some remembered names but not faces. Others remembered faces and collapsed because the pain returned all at once, too sharp to hold alone. The shinobi did what they could, not with jutsu. That was the lesson Hashigawa had carved into all of them. Chakra could stop bleeding. Chakra could reinforce walls. Chakra could carry the exhausted and warm the freezing. But it could not tie a thread. It could not tell a grieving father what he had been too ashamed to say. It could not make a child's memory belong to the heart again. So the shinobi sat with people. They listened. They repeated names. They carried bowls of water. They kept families from overwhelming the hollowed too quickly. They held the village together with patience, one shaking breath at a time. Naruto hated how slow it was. He hated that hatred too. He stood at the edge of the square while Sakura guided a woman through a memory of her son. The woman kept forgetting the middle of the story. Sakura did not rush her. She simply asked again. Same gentle voice, same steady hand. Nearby, Mei knelt before a hollowed Kiri shinobi, speaking to him not as a Mizukage, but as a person who remembered the shape of his name. Yura sat beside them, trembling every time a thread flickered. Shikamaru organized teams in quiet rotations, making sure no responder stayed too long near a grieving family without rest. Tsunade moved through the town like a storm forced to learn gentleness. She checked bodies. She caught fainting civilians. She barked orders when someone panicked. But when an old man grabbed her hand and begged her not to let him forget his wife's favorite song, Tsunade sat on the ground beside him and hummed badly until he laughed through his tears and corrected her. Naruto watched all of it. The web was repairing, not beautifully, not quickly. Threads reconnected in ugly knots, with loose ends and frayed places that might ache for years. The Severance had not been defeated here. It had merely been denied a complete meal, and it had learned That thought sat in Naruto's chest like a stone. The Severance had learned that truth could resist it. It had learned Mei's guilt could become connection. It had learned Tsunade could anchor him. It had learned Sakura could ground him. Most dangerously, it had learned that Naruto's heart could carry a town's grief for 1 second and not break. 1 second. Naruto looked at his hands. They were still shaking. He curled them into fists until the trembling stopped, or seemed to inside him. Kurama watched without speaking. That silence was not peace. It was waiting. Naruto felt it. "You're going to yell at me again?" he asked inwardly. Kurama's voice rumbled through the chamber of their bond. "I am deciding whether yelling will help." Naruto almost smiled. "Since when do you think first?" "Since you started mistaking despair for strategy." The almost smile vanished. Naruto looked toward the memorial wall, where Masato sat with Iki's name beneath his hand. The man was still crying, but he was present. In pain, yes, broken open, yes, but present. Naruto had helped him. Naruto had also nearly become the bridge through which the whole town poured into silence. "What if there's a way to stop it from using me?" Naruto asked. Kurama's answer came instantly. "No, you don't even know what I'm going to say." "Yes, I do." Naruto closed his eyes. Beyond the town, the forest moved under evening wind. Leaves whispered against each other, thousands of small sounds like the world trying to speak softly. "I'm not saying I want to die. Worse." Naruto flinched. Kurama's tails lashed in the darkness. "Death is clean compared to what you are considering. Death leaves grief. Grief leaves threads. Threads can still carry love. Hollowing leaves nothing." Naruto swallowed. "That's the point." The fox went still. Naruto pressed a hand against his chest. "If I became nothing, it couldn't use my heart." Kurama's growl deepened until the inner chamber shook. "Listen to yourself." "I am. No. You are listening to the thing that touched Hashigawa. It offered emptiness to them, and now you are trying to make emptiness sound heroic." Naruto opened his eyes. Across the square, a little boy cried against Sakura's shoulder while Sakura whispered that remembering hurt because his mother had mattered. Naruto's voice fell. "What if everyone would be safer without my threads?" Kurama did not answer immediately. When he did, there was old pain in his voice, buried beneath anger. "I spent most of my life believing bonds were chains humans used before they reached for knives. Then you came and annoyed me into learning otherwise. Do not make me watch you prove my old hatred right." Naruto's throat tightened. He looked away from the square. "I need air." Kurama's voice sharpened. "You already have air. What you want is distance." Naruto did not answer. He stepped back. No one noticed at first. Everyone was busy with the wounded, the hollowed, the waking, the grieving. Naruto moved quietly through a side street, then another. He did not run. Running would draw attention. He had learned stealth badly, according to Kakashi, but desperation made even Naruto careful. At the edge of Hashigawa, he paused. Sakura's folded paper sat in his pouch. He did not take it out. He told himself that did not mean anything. Then he left the town and walked into the forest. Tsunade noticed 7 minutes later. That was long enough for Naruto to put distance between himself and the square. Not long enough to vanish if they moved immediately. Sakura was the one who saw Tsunade's face change. "What?" Tsunade turned toward the tree line. Sakura's blood went cold. "No." Mei looked up from the Kiri shinobi she was helping. Yura suddenly gasped and pressed both hands to her chest. "The gold thread is pulling away." Tsunade was already moving. Sakura followed. Mei gave one order to her escort and joined them. Shikamaru appeared from a side alley as if he had been waiting for disaster to choose a direction. "Of course," he muttered. "Of course he picked now." Tsunade's voice was deadly. "Track him!" Yura stood, trembling. "I can follow the threads, but they are dimming." Sakura's face went pale. Tsunade heard it and moved faster. The forest beyond Hashigawa was quiet in the wrong way. Naruto had always liked forests. Konoha was built among trees, after all. Trees had watched him grow, watched him fail, watched him train until his hands blistered and his chakra collapsed. Trees did not whisper demon. Trees did not look away. Trees simply stood. But tonight, the forest felt like it was waiting for him to make a choice. He stopped in a small clearing where moonlight fell through branches in broken silver lines. No village, no crying, no eyes looking to him, no threads visible. For the first time since Setsuna had shown him the web, Naruto could almost pretend his heart belonged only to him. That made the next step easier. He sat cross-legged in the center of the clearing. His breathing slowed. Sage mode came naturally. He felt the world around him. Roots drinking from dark soil, insects under bark, owls turning their heads, the distant ache of human grief in Hashigawa. Natural energy moved through him, steady and vast. A universal bond. That was what Yura had called it. A bridge. Naruto did not want a bridge now. He wanted a door he could close. Kurama surged inside him. Do not. Naruto whispered. I'm just looking. Liar. Naruto smiled sadly. Yeah. He turned his awareness inward, not toward chakra, not toward Kurama, not toward the familiar places of power he knew, deeper toward the threads. At first he saw nothing. Then slowly the clearing changed. Gold light emerged from his chest. One thread became 10. 10 became hundreds. Hundreds became too many to count. They stretched in every direction, passing through trees, earth, air, distance, darkness. Some were thick and bright. Sakura, Sasuke far away, Kakashi, Iruka, Tsunade, Hinata, Shikamaru, Gaara, B, Kurama inside him, and countless others. Some were thinner. Villagers he had helped once, shinobi who had seen him on the battlefield, children who believed in him because someone told them the hero in orange made the sun rise after the war. Some threads were strange, old. They did not lead to living people exactly, but to dreams left behind. Minato, Kushina, Jiraiya, Neji, Obito, Nagato, people gone but not gone from him. Naruto's breath shook. The weight of it pressed down. All this time, he had thought bonds were hands holding him up. Now he saw they were also roads. Roads the severance could follow. Roads the world's grief could use to reach his heart. He lifted one hand toward a thin thread connected to someone he barely knew, a wounded shinobi from Hashigawa who had looked at him with hope and terror. The thread pulsed. Naruto felt the man's fear, his dead brother's face, his shame for surviving. Naruto let go quickly, his hand trembled. If I cut them, he whispered, they won't be roads anymore. Kurama roared. Naruto ignored him because if he listened now, he would stop. And if he stopped, then he would have to walk back to Hashigawa and admit that part of him had wanted silence. He reached deeper. Yura had said self-severance existed. Anyone could cut their own threads, become hollow, untouchable to the severance because there would be nothing left to touch. How did one cut a bond from the inside? Naruto did not know. But the severance had shown him the shape of emptiness. Hashigawa had shown him the offer, rest. No more pain, no more carrying both ends. Naruto focused on the smallest thread first, not Sakura, not Tsunade, not anyone close. A distant thread. A weak one, someone he had inspired without knowing. His fingers closed around it, the thread warmed. He saw a young boy in a village he did not recognize, running with a wooden kunai, shouting that he would become strong like the hero of the war. Naruto's hand froze. The boy fell, scraped his knee, cried, then stood because his older sister said heroes got up. Naruto released the thread as if burned, his eyes filled. No, he whispered. The forest stirred. A voice answered. Even the smallest thread hurts when pulled. Naruto stood instantly. Setsuna stood at the edge of the clearing. Not a projection this time, or not only one, her feet touched the grass. Moonlight outlined her pale robe. Her eyes were sad, gentle, and impossibly tired. Naruto's chakra rose, then he forced it down. Chakra would not help. Setsuna noticed. You learn quickly. Naruto's voice was rough. Did you follow me? No, she looked at the threads around him. You called every severed thing when you reached for the knife. I didn't call you. You called the question I belong to. Naruto swallowed. The forest around her seemed dimmer, as if the world forgot how to be alive where she stood. Behind Setsuna, something vast waited between the trees, not visible, felt the severance. Naruto's threads trembled. Setsuna stepped closer. You understand now, she said, the cruelty of being needed. Naruto clenched his fists. Don't pretend you're helping me. I am not pretending. You hollowed a town. I ended a town's suffering. You stole their grief. Setsuna's eyes sharpened with pain. Grief is not sacred because it hurts. No, Naruto said. It's sacred because it means love survived. She looked away. That answer hurt her. Good, some angry part of Naruto thought, then he hated himself for thinking it. Setsuna reached toward a golden thread near him but did not touch it. So many roads, she whispered. So many people walking into you, leaving their pain at your door, calling it hope. Naruto's jaw tightened. They don't leave it at my door. Do they not? Her gaze returned to him. When villages cheer your name, do they not ask you to prove the world is healed? When enemies kneel, do they not ask you to turn their guilt into meaning? When the dead leave dreams in your hands, do they not ask you to carry what they could not finish? Naruto said nothing. Setsuna stepped closer. When your teacher died, did people ask if you were ready before they needed you to understand pain? Jiraiya's name moved through him like a blade. When your friend fell before you in war, did the battlefield stop so you could grieve? Neji, Naruto's breath caught. When your parents returned only long enough to leave again, did anyone ask if a few minutes of love would make the second goodbye worse? Stop, Naruto whispered. Setsuna's face softened. I am not attacking you. I am telling you that you are tired. The terrible thing was that she sounded kind. Not cruel, not mocking. Kind. Naruto looked at the threads around him. They glowed like a sunrise caught in a net. He was tired. So tired that the admission felt like betrayal. Tired of being the one who understood. Tired of making pain meaningful. Tired of carrying names. Tired of smiling first so others could breathe. Tired of being strong enough that everyone forgot strength had weight. Setsuna lifted her hand. The severance cannot take what is freely released, she said. Naruto looked at her. She extended her palm. I can show you how. Inside him, Kurama snarled. If you touch her hand, I will bite your soul myself. Naruto almost laughed, but his eyes stayed on Setsuna's hand. What happens after? He asked. You rest. Will I remember them? Yes. Will I love them? Setsuna's hand trembled. For the first time, she hesitated. No, she whispered. That is the mercy. Naruto closed his eyes. Sakura's note burned in his pouch. Your name is Naruto Uzumaki. You are not the whole world. He wanted to believe that. But what if the world had decided otherwise? A sound came from the trees. Naruto, Sakura. Setsuna stepped back and the shadows thickened around her. Naruto opened his eyes. Tsunade burst into the clearing first, with Mei beside her, Sakura behind them, Shikamaru and Yura following. Tsunade saw the threads. She saw Naruto standing in their center. She saw Setsuna's outstretched hand. Her face went white with fury. Step away from him. Setsuna looked at her with weary sadness. You keep arriving late and calling it protection. Tsunade flinched. Mei moved beside her. And you keep calling emptiness mercy because grief answered you before people did. Setsuna's eyes flashed. The severance stirred. Yura fell to one knee, gasping. It's here, not fully, but close. Shikamaru scanned the clearing. We need to avoid panic. Everyone breathe. Sakura ignored him and walked toward Naruto. He stepped back. The movement stopped her cold. Naruto, his face twisted. Don't come closer. Sakura's eyes filled with hurt. He looked away. Tsunade understood too quickly. He was afraid of their threads, afraid proximity made them vulnerable, afraid love itself had become a weapon aimed through him. Tsunade forced her voice down. Naruto, look at me. He did not. Brat. That got him. His eyes flicked to hers. Tsunade stepped forward slowly. You asked what would happen if you cut yourself off. Naruto's face hardened. I didn't do it. Not yet. His silence hurt. Tsunade moved closer. The thread between them appeared green-gold, thick and shaking. Naruto stared at it. Stop, he said. No, it can use that. Let it try. His anger broke through. This isn't bravery. This is exactly what it wants. No, Tsunade snapped. What it wants is you standing in a clearing convincing yourself that becoming empty is noble. Naruto recoiled. Tsunade's voice roughened. I know that lie, Naruto. I lived it. The clearing went still. Even Setsuna watched. Tsunade pressed one hand against her chest. When Nawaki died, I cut away the part of me that believed dreams were safe. When Dan died, I cut away the part of me that believed love was worth the cost. When Jiraiya died, I nearly cut away the part that had learned to come back. Her eyes shone, but her voice did not break. I called it survival. I called it wisdom. I called it being realistic. But do you know what it really was? Naruto's lips parted. Tsunade stepped close enough that the thread between them glowed bright. It was me becoming a little hollow and pretending I had matured. Naruto shook his head. You're not hollow. No, because you dragged me back, you impossible brat. His eyes widened. Tsunade laughed once, and it hurt. You stood in front of me with my grandfather's necklace around your neck, gambling your life on a dream I had buried with my brother. You made me believe again, and I hated you for it before I loved you for it. The word love struck the clearing harder than any fist. Naruto froze. Tsunade did not take it back. I have lost too much to pretend bonds are gentle, she said. They are not. They are terrifying. They make strong people foolish. They make healers helpless. They make old women grab wrists and lie because they cannot bear to watch another child walk toward pain. Her voice cracked at last. But cutting them does not save you. It only lets the wound win quietly. Naruto's eyes burned. Setsuna looked away as if the words had touched her too. Then Mei stepped forward. Her thread shimmered red-green, crossing beside Tsunade's. In Kiri, Mei said, we made an art of self-severance. We taught children to cut hesitation, cut tenderness, cut family if ordered. We called them perfect shinobi when they could kill a classmate without shaking. She looked at Setsuna, and sorrow moved openly across her face. We created a village full of people who survived by becoming less alive. Setsuna's jaw tightened. Mei continued. I became Mizukage of ruins that still knew how to smile politely. Do you know what the hardest part of rebuilding was, Naruto? It was not roads, not treaties, not bloodline law. It was convincing people that needing each other was not a weakness that would be punished later. Her hand trembled once. I failed Setsuna. I failed many names before I ever learned them, and because that guilt hurt, I hid behind duty. I carried a village and told myself no one needed to carry me. She looked at him fully. That is also a kind of hollow. Naruto whispered. Mei, she smiled sadly. You once told the world that hatred could end if someone refused to pass it on. Let me tell you what I learned later. Numbness passes on too. Silence passes on. A leader who never lets herself be held teaches a village that being held is shameful. Mei extended her hand, not to Setsuna now, but to Naruto. We did this to ourselves in different ways. Do not become us. Sakura stepped beside them, tears on her face but voice steady. And don't become nothing because you're scared we'll get hurt loving you. Naruto's face crumpled for one heartbeat before he forced it back. Sakura saw she always saw. You don't get to decide our hearts for us, she said. You hated when people did that to you, so don't do it to us. Shikamaru added from behind her, quieter, also strategically, it's a terrible plan. A broken laugh escaped Naruto. It sounded almost like pain. Shikamaru shrugged. Someone had to say it. Yura lifted her head. The threads are responding. Naruto looked around. They were. The golden threads no longer hung like weights. They moved, not pulling at him, moving with the others. Sakura's thread reached him, yes, but it also reached outward to Tsunade, to Ino, to Sasuke far away, to memories of Team 7 and the people she had saved. Tsunade's thread touched Naruto, but also Dan, Nawaki, Shizune, Sakura, the village, old griefs and new hopes. Mei's thread touched him, but also Kiri, Yura, names in purge records. Children not yet born who might grow up without being taught to kill love. Naruto had been wrong. The threads did not all end at him. They passed through him, around him, beside him. A web did not have one heart because one person owned it. It had a heart because many people kept it beating together. Setsuna stared at the moving threads. No, she whispered. The severance rose behind her. This time everyone saw it. A vast, pale shape unfolded between the trees. Larger than any summoning beast, yet silent as snowfall. It had no true face, but countless impressions drifted across its surface. Grieving mothers, dead soldiers, forgotten children, old enemies, nameless civilians, every sorrow war had ended too quickly to mourn. Its presence pressed down on the clearing. Sai's ink dissolved on his scroll. Shikamaru's knees bent under the weight. Sakura gasped. Tsunade and Mei remained standing only because they had already chosen to. Naruto's threads flickered violently. Setsuna's voice trembled. "Please stop. You are making it hurt again." Naruto looked at her. For the first time, he did not see only the herald of the severance. He saw the child from the sketch, the girl who built graves because no one else would, the teenager who learned to survive in a village erased by shame, the young woman who loved one person, lost him, and heard the whole world celebrate peace while her heart broke alone. Naruto stepped forward. Tsunade caught his sleeve. He looked back. She did not hold him tightly, not this time. Her hand rested there, asking. "Naruto," she said, "don't go to disappear." He placed his hand over hers. "I won't." Mei's eyes searched his face. "Do not offer your heart as a sacrifice." Naruto looked at the threads, then at Setsuna, then at the severance. "No," he said, his voice steadied. "I'm done treating my heart like a battlefield other people get to win." The golden threads brightened. The severance recoiled slightly. Naruto pulled Sakura's folded note from his pouch and unfolded it. He read it once more, not because he had forgotten, but because truth became stronger when spoken. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I am not the whole world. I am one person loved by many, and love is not a mission order." Sakura covered her mouth. Naruto folded the paper carefully and placed it back against his chest. Then he looked at Setsuna. "But love is a choice." He stepped forward again. This time, Tsunade let go. Mei did not stop him. Sakura did not chase him. They walked behind him, not close enough to shield, close enough to anchor. The severance spread wider, and the clearing became a place between worlds. Trees faded. Moonlight dimmed. Threads filled the air in impossible numbers, stretching from living hearts, dead names, buried villages, battlefields, hospitals, memorial stones, and quiet rooms where people had cried alone. Setsuna stood before the pale vastness, tears running down her face. "Do not come closer," she whispered. "If it touches your open heart now, it will take everything." Naruto's eyes softened. "I know." "Then why?" "Because you're still standing in there." Setsuna shook her head. "I am the door." "No," Naruto said. "You're the first person it convinced." The words struck her so hard she stepped back. The severance tightened around her like a cage pretending to be an embrace. "Rest," it seemed to whisper. "Let go, no more pain." Naruto felt the offer brush his heart again. It found every tired place inside him, every lonely night, every funeral, every goodbye. Every moment he had smiled because someone needed him to be the sun. The offer was still tempting. That was the worst truth. Emptiness would be easier. But easier was not the same as mercy. Naruto inhaled, sage mode steadied him. Kurama's warmth rose behind his ribs. Tsunade's thread held left. Mei's held right. Sakura, Shikamaru, Yura, and every person who had chosen to stand near him added their small truths to the web. Naruto did not close his heart. He opened it wider. The clearing flooded with gold. The severance surged. Setsuna screamed, not in attack, but fear. Naruto walked straight toward her, not as a weapon, not as a sacrifice, as a boy who had once sat alone on a swing and survived because someone finally said his name with kindness. As a man who now understood that guarding a heart did not mean hiding it behind walls. It meant letting others stand close enough to hold it when the darkness came. He stopped one step from Setsuna. The severance loomed behind her, vast and merciful and starving. Naruto extended his hand. "Setsuna," he said softly. "I'm here." Her eyes widened. For the first time since the world forgot her village, someone spoke her name without guilt, fear, record, or pity, only presence. A golden thread reached from Naruto's open heart toward hers. The severance descended. And this time, Naruto did not step back. The severance descended like mercy with no soul. It did not roar. It did not strike with claws or fangs or blades. It simply lowered itself over Naruto and Setsuna as if the sky had decided to become a blanket and smother every living thing gently. The clearing vanished. Trees faded into pale outlines. Moonlight broke apart into drifting threads. The ground beneath Naruto's sandals became something between earth and memory, solid enough to stand on, fragile enough that every step sent ripples through scenes that were not his own. a battlefield under red dawn, a hospital corridor where someone waited for news that never came, a nameless village in the land of water, snow falling through broken roofs, the memorial stone in Konoha, Hashigawa's cracked shrine, thousands of places, all overlapping, all unfinished. Naruto stood at the center, hand extended toward Setsuna. She stared at him as if his hand was more frightening than any weapon. Behind her, the severance unfolded wider, its surface shifted constantly. Faces appeared and vanished before they became clear. A soldier reaching for a comrade. A child clutching an empty sleeve. A mother kneeling beside a folded headband. A shinobi laughing before the memory cut away, not ghosts, not souls, grief. All the grief war had left behind when the living were too tired to mourn properly. Naruto felt it pressing against his heart, not breaking in. Waiting for him to open, and he was open. That was the danger, that was the choice. Tsunade tried to step after him. The moment her foot crossed the edge of the clearing's fading boundary, the world pushed back. Not with force, with memory. She saw Dan's blood on her hands, not as a flashback. As if she were there again, the warmth. The impossible amount of red, the failing pulse. Her own voice ordering him to stay alive as if the body obeyed love when skill was not enough. Her knees almost buckled. Mei caught her arm, then Mei gasped. Her own memory opened. Children walking into mist with wooden kunai. A classroom too quiet. An old Kiri elder saying necessary sacrifice while refusing to meet her eyes. A list of erased names. Setsuna's name stamped almost out of existence. Both women staggered, but neither fell. Sakura moved forward and stopped with a cry as her own grief struck her. Sasuke walking away into darkness. Naruto bleeding on battlefields because she could not reach him fast enough. The helpless terror of almost losing everyone she loved to wars older than her. Shikamaru froze as his father's last words pressed against him. Yura collapsed to her knees beneath threads she could see too clearly. The severance did not attack them. It offered each person the pain they had buried and the promise that they never had to feel it again. Tsunade gritted her teeth. "No," she whispered. Mei's hand tightened around hers. The thread between them flared, not enough to move forward, enough to remain standing. Inside the pale world, Naruto still faced Setsuna. His voice was quiet. "Take my hand." Setsuna shook her head. "You do not understand what will happen." "Then tell me. If I take it, it will touch you fully." "The severance," she nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "It has only brushed you, tasted the edges. If your heart reaches mine now, every severed thread inside it will follow, every grief, every goodbye, every loss that was never held." Naruto swallowed. He could feel them already, gathered behind her like an ocean waiting for one crack in the wall. Setsuna's voice broke. "You will drown." Naruto looked past her. The severance waited. It felt patient because it was made of pain that had already waited too long. Then he looked back at Setsuna. "Maybe," she flinched. Tsunade shouted from behind him, voice raw. "Naruto." He did not turn. If he turned, he might stop. If he stopped, Setsuna would remain the door. If Setsuna remained the door, the severance would keep cutting the world one heart at a time until emptiness looked like peace. Naruto knew this was not a battle he could win by overpowering it. Kurama knew too. Inside him, the great fox stood in the chamber of their bond, tail still, eyes narrowed. "You are about to do something impossible again." Naruto's answer came without words. Kurama growled. "Then do not do it alone." Warmth rose beneath Naruto's ribs, not the violent blaze of a Biju weapon. A living warmth, a presence at his back. Kurama did not lend him power to destroy, he lent him belonging. Naruto's extended hand steadied. "Setsuna," he said, "you said no one came for you." Her face crumpled. "No one did." "I know, you don't." "No," Naruto said softly, "not the way you lived it." "I can't know that exactly, but I know the shape of waiting. I know what it feels like to sit somewhere hoping someone will choose you." The pale world trembled. A small swing appeared behind him, empty, then gone. Naruto's eyes did not leave hers. "I know what it feels like when people talk around you like you're a problem instead of a person. I know what it feels like to be told your pain is dangerous, so everyone else gets to decide what you're allowed to know. Tsunade lowered her head behind him, tears in her eyes. Naruto continued. But someone did come for me. Uruka-sensei, Team 7, Granny, a lot of people eventually. Setsuna's hands curled into fists, then you were saved. No, Naruto said. I was reached. The word moved through the threads, reached, not fixed, not erased, reached. Naruto took one slow step closer. You can still be reached. The severance tightened. Setsuna gasped as pale strands wrapped around her shoulders and arms. They were not chains, not exactly. They looked like hands trying to comfort someone who did not know comfort could become a cage. Rest, the severance whispered without sound. No more reaching, no more waiting, no more being left. Setsuna squeezed her eyes shut. I am so tired, she whispered. Naruto's heart twisted. I know. I kept their names, she said. Everyone in the village, I kept them because no one else did. Mother, father, brother. The old woman who taught me how to clean fish. The boy who carved birds from driftwood. Ren. The last name broke her voice. I kept all of them. Then the war ended and people cheered. They called it peace, but Ren was still gone. My village was still gone. My family was still gone. Their names were still nowhere. Around her, the pale world formed the nameless village, snow, broken doors, small graves made by small hands. Setsuna stood among them, older and younger at once. What was I supposed to do with all that love when everyone it belonged to had vanished? Naruto had no easy answer, so he did not give one. He stepped into the snow memory with her. The cold bit his skin. A child Setsuna knelt beside a row of stones, placing one pebble carefully atop another. Naruto crouched near the stones. He read the names scratched there by a child's hand. Some were incomplete, some misspelled, some only marks because she had been too young to remember the full sound. Naruto touched the ground before them, not claiming, acknowledging. They were here, he said. Setsuna stopped breathing. Naruto looked up at her. They were here, he repeated. And what happened to them was wrong. The severance shuddered. The words were simple, too simple for politics, too simple for cage reports, too simple for archives sealed in wax. That was why they cut deeper than any jutsu. Mei heard them from the edge of the pale world. Something inside her broke open. She stepped forward again. The memory of Kiri's sins struck her, but this time she did not push it away. She carried it, one step, then another. Tsunade saw and understood. Mei was not fighting the grief. She was admitting it belonged in the room. The severance pressed harder. Mei nearly fell. Tsunade caught her. You don't walk into guilt alone, Tsunade said. Mei looked at her, then nodded. Together they moved one step closer. Sakura saw them and wiped her face with the back of her hand. Shikamaru, she said. He exhaled shakily. Yeah, I know. Troublesome. He moved two, then Sakura, then Yura, trembling so badly she could barely stand, but standing anyway. Sai helped her, one by one. Those at the edge of the clearing stepped into the pressure of their own grief and refused the offer of numbness, not because they were fearless. Because Naruto was not the only one allowed to be brave. Inside the memory, Setsuna stared at Naruto kneeling before her village stones. You cannot mourn them, she whispered. You did not know them. Naruto looked back at her. No, but you did. She shook her head desperately. It hurts. Then don't do it alone. He held out his hand again. This time, Setsuna looked at it as if it might save or destroy her. The severance moved. It rose behind her in a vast pale wave, sensing the thread forming between Naruto and the girl it had claimed as its doorway. No more pain, it promised. Naruto felt the promise brush him. It was still tempting. That was something he would never forget, the desire to rest, to stop being needed, to let every thread fall silent and never again feel the ache of names. Then Tsunade's voice reached him, not loud. True. We're here, brat. Mei's followed. You are not carrying this alone. Sakura's voice shook but held. Come back annoying, remember? Shikamaru sighed. Please don't make us explain this plan to everyone if it fails. Yura whispered through tears. The threads are still holding. Kurama's warmth burned steady inside him. Naruto smiled, small, tired, real. Then Setsuna took his hand. The severance entered Naruto's heart. There was no explosion, no battlefield clash, no golden avatar smashing through darkness. The world simply opened and grief came in. Naruto fell to his knees. He did not know if he screamed. He felt 1,000 unfinished goodbyes at once. No, more than 1,000. A battlefield of sons who never returned home. A mother who never learned where her child was buried. A medic who saved 7 people and remembered only the 8th. A samurai who died protecting strangers whose names he never knew. A Kiri child ordered to kill a friend. A stone shinobi crushed beneath rubble while thinking of his sister. A Cloud veteran who survived and hated himself for it. A Sand mother who stopped singing because the song belonged to a dead daughter. Names, faces, hands, letters, promises, regrets. So much love with nowhere to go, it poured into Naruto, not like water but like fire frozen cold. His threads flared wildly. Tsunade cried out as the thread between them strained. Mei grabbed Naruto's shoulder from one side. Tsunade took the other. Sakura dropped behind him and pressed both hands to his back. Shikamaru caught Tsunade when she nearly slipped. Yura reached toward the air, guiding threads she could barely see through her tears. Kurama roared inside Naruto, not at the grief but around him, making a circle of warmth so the cold could not take everything. Naruto shook. For one terrible moment his eyes went empty. Tsunade's heart stopped. "No," she snarled. She pressed her forehead against the back of his shoulder like she could force her own stubborn life into him. "Naruto Uzumaki, you do not get to leave after making me believe again." Mei's voice followed, fierce and shaking. "You do not get to teach a village how to be held and then vanish from our hands." Sakura was crying openly now. "You promised you'd come back annoying." Naruto heard them from very far away. The grief was enormous. It wanted to become him, not maliciously. It had no one else. That was the truth beneath the severance. It was not an enemy army. It was grief that had been abandoned so long it had mistaken ending connection for ending pain. Naruto could not defeat it by rejecting it. That would only sever it again. He had to do the impossible. He had to let it be felt without letting it become everything. His fingers tightened around Setsuna's. She was crying too, caught in the same flood. "I can't," she sobbed. Naruto's voice came broken. "Say his name." She shook her head. "Say it. It will hurt." "Yeah, I can't lose him again." Naruto looked at her through tears. "You already lost him. This is how you stop losing yourself too." Setsuna made a sound like a child. Then she whispered, "Ren." The severance shuddered. A single thread within the pale mass turned gold at the edge. Setsuna clutched Naruto's hand. "Ren," she said again, louder. "I loved you. I hated you for leaving. I know you tried to help people. I know you died because the world was on fire, but I hated you for not coming back." The thread tightened. I waited until waiting became the only thing I knew how to do." Naruto bowed his head. The grief inside him shifted, not gone, named. Setsuna sobbed. "And I am so angry that people called the war over while I was still kneeling beside you." The severance cracked, not like stone, like ice under spring light. Around them, countless pale threads trembled. Naruto understood. One truth had opened the door. Now the rest needed witness. He could not speak every truth for every heart, but he could make room. He placed his free hand over his chest. Then he opened his heart wider than he ever had, not to take control, to listen. The pale world filled with voices. At first they were noise. Then, slowly, guided by Yura's trembling sight, anchored by Tsunade and Mei, warmed by Kurama and held by Sakura, the voices became names, one by one, not all spoken by Naruto. That was the miracle. Tsunade spoke Dan's name not as a wound, as love. Then Nawaki. Then Jiraiya, her voice broke, but she did not stop. Mei spoke the names from the Purge archive, the ones she knew. Then the ones she had only read once. Then she promised the unknown would not remain unknown. Sakura spoke names from the hospital wards, patients she had lost, comrades she had not properly mourned because more wounded kept arriving. Shikamaru spoke his father's name and finally admitted he had been afraid. Yura spoke for her bloodline, for every heart censor who had been silenced because feeling was inconvenient to cruel men. Sai, awkward and soft, spoke the name of his brother. Kurama did not speak aloud. But inside Naruto, the fox remembered every Jinchuriki who had carried loneliness before him. Even that mattered. The severance trembled under the weight of grief no longer abandoned. Its mercy logic began to fail, because grief, once shared, did not become emptiness. It became mourning hurt. But it moved. The pale mass around Setsuna cracked wider. Faces appeared more clearly now, not screaming, not hollow, but seen. Naruto saw them. He could not know them all, but he could refuse to let them be nothing. His voice rose through the impossible world. You were here. The threads brightened. You mattered. The severance recoiled. You were loved. A sound like thunder passed through the pale sky. The severance tried one final time. It gathered every cut thread, every unspoken goodbye, every grief that still wanted silence, and pressed them toward Naruto's open heart. Tsunade and Mei felt the pressure and nearly collapsed. Naruto's body shook violently. Sakura screamed his name. Kurama roared, pouring warmth into him until gold fire wrapped around every thread. Naruto lifted his head. His eyes were filled with tears, but they were his eyes, not hollow, not empty, alive. Pain doesn't mean bonds are wrong, he said. The severance froze. Naruto's voice strengthened. Pain means something was real. Setsuna stared at him, the girl who had been the door, the girl who had been alone so long that mercy and oblivion had begun to sound the same. Naruto squeezed her hand. And if it was real, then it deserves to be remembered with love, not erased by silence. The words struck the heart of the severance. For the first time it made a sound, not a roar, a sob. The entire pale world shuddered. Every thread inside the severance lit at once, not gold like Naruto's, but countless colors. Blue, red, green, silver, soft, white, warm, amber, each one a bond returning to its own truth. The severance did not die. Death was not the answer. It dissolved because it had finally been felt. The mercy without a soul became grief with witnesses. The grief with witnesses became mourning. And mourning, though painful, belonged to the living. The pale world broke open. Naruto saw the nameless village one last time, not restored, not magically healed, but changed. The small graves stood beneath falling snow. Beside them, new markers appeared, not perfect, not complete, but real. Names Mei had spoken, names Setsuna remembered, names that would no longer be buried in sealed archives. Setsuna fell forward. Naruto caught her. This time she felt human. Light. Shaking, alive. The clearing returned trees, moonlight, cold air, the ground beneath them. Naruto collapsed to one knee, still holding Setsuna. Tsunade and Sakura caught him before he could fall fully. Mei dropped beside Setsuna, one hand hovering uncertainly before resting gently on the girl's shoulder. Yura sobbed in relief. Shikamaru sat down hard on the grass. I hate emotional battlefields, he muttered. Sai blinked. I found it difficult. Sakura gave a wet laugh. Tsunade checked Naruto with shaking hands. Brat, look at me. Naruto opened his eyes, exhausted, red-rimmed, still bright. Hey, Granny, Tsunade's face twisted. Then she pulled him into a hug so fierce he wheezed. Idiot, she whispered. He leaned into it. For once, he did not pretend he was fine. Mei looked down at Setsuna. The girl's gray eyes opened slowly for a moment. Terror crossed her face. Then confusion. Then pain, real pain, human pain. She began to cry, not silent tears, not serene sorrow. Ugly, broken sobs that bent her forward. Mei gathered her carefully, as if holding someone made of cracked glass. I'm sorry, Setsuna gasped. I'm sorry, I thought. I know, Mei whispered. I cut them. I know. I wanted it to stop. Mei closed her eyes. I know. Setsuna clutched her sleeve like a child. It hurts. Mei held her tighter. Yes. Tsunade looked over Naruto's shoulder at them. Her own tears slipped free. Yes, she said softly. It does. Dawn found them still in the clearing. No one had slept. Some wounds did not allow sleep immediately. Yura confirmed what they all felt. The severance was gone. Not destroyed by force. Not sealed. Not conquered. Gone in the way a storm is gone after rain finally falls. Its remnants remained in the world as grief always would. People would still mourn. Names would still hurt. Some threads would take years to mend, some might never reconnect completely. But the great will of severance, the mercy that wanted to end pain by ending bonds, had dissolved. Hashigawa began recovering slowly. Daichai did not immediately remember how to love his daughter. That was not how healing worked. But when Hana entered his hospital room 2 days later and placed the wooden fox he had carved into his hands, Daichai cried without understanding why. It was a beginning. Haru returned to the memorial stone with 2 rice bowls. For a long time, he felt nothing. Then, as he sat there, he whispered his brother's name. His voice shook. Not healed beginning in Kiri may open the Purge archives publicly, not all at once, not carelessly, but truthfully. The nameless village received a memorial. Setsuna gave the first name, then another, then another. Some days she could only speak one before grief stole her breath. Mei stood beside her every time. Not as Mizukage, only as witness. In Konoha, Tsunade stopped pretending sake and sharp words were the same as healing. She still shouted. She still threatened paperwork. She still punched walls when officials said foolish things. But sometimes, at dusk, she sat at the memorial stone and spoke 3 names aloud, Nawaki, Dan Jiraiya, and when Naruto found her there one evening, he did not joke. He simply sat beside her. Their thread did not need naming anymore. Sakura kept the grounding note updated. Naruto complained the new version had too many lines. She punched his shoulder and told him to be grateful. He was. Shikamaru began organizing village grief circles and insisted they were strategic resonance stabilization meetings. Because that sounded less embarrassing. Everyone knew what they were, no one corrected him, and Naruto carried a new weight. There was no hiding that. Sometimes he woke with names in his chest he did not know. Sometimes he had to sit down because a stranger's grief brushed a thread too strongly. Sometimes the world felt louder than before, but he was not hollow, he was not broken, and he was not alone. That was the difference. Weeks after the severance dissolved, Naruto stood on the Hokage monument at sunrise. The village below glowed gold. Tsunade climbed up beside him, grumbling about stairs despite being able to crack mountains. Mei stood on his other side, visiting under the official excuse of diplomatic follow-up. Sakura, Kakashi, Shikamaru, Yura, and Setsuna waited a little farther back. Setsuna looked fragile in morning light, but alive. She watched the village with wary eyes. Naruto glanced at her. "You okay?" She considered the question seriously. "No," he nodded. "Yeah, that happens." She looked at him, startled. He smiled. "But you're here." Setsuna's eyes lowered. "Yes," she whispered. "I'm here." Mei stepped closer to Naruto. "The alliance is no longer secret," she said. Tsunade snorted. "Good, I'm tired of secret meetings in storage rooms. You enjoyed threatening everyone?" "I enjoy that anywhere." Naruto laughed. The sound moved across the monument, warm and familiar. For a moment, the threads around him shimmered in the sunrise, not visible to the whole village. Only to those who had learned how to feel what they were seeing. Gold from Naruto, green from Tsunade. Red from Mei, pink from Sakura, silver-gray from Kakashi, soft blue from Yura. A faint, trembling thread from Setsuna, still new, still healing, reaching toward the others. The web was not perfect. It would never be perfect. That was not the point. Tsunade looked at Naruto. "We made a pact to guard your heart," she said. Naruto grinned. Without asking me, Mei gave a small, guilty smile. "A serious mistake, very serious." Tsunade rolled her eyes. "Don't get dramatic." Naruto's smile softened. Then he looked out over Konoha. "You can guard it," he said. "But not by closing it." Tsunade and Mei exchanged a glance. The lesson had cost them enough that neither needed to say it again. Mei spoke quietly. "Then how?" Naruto placed one hand over his chest. For once, he did not make the answer loud. "Stand beside it." The sun rose higher. Lights spilled across the village, touching rooftops, streets, memorial stones, hospital windows, academy yards, and every place where grief and love lived together. Naruto Uzumaki stood in that light, not as the heart of the world because he carried everyone alone, but because he had finally learned to let others carry him too. And beside him stood the hearts that guarded the sun, not shields, not walls, anchors. The world would hurt again. Names would still be lost. Goodbyes would still come too soon. But somewhere, when silence tried to call itself mercy, there would be people brave enough to answer with truth. You were here, you mattered, you were loved. And as long as those words could still be spoken, no severance would ever own the world.